I know we told you a lot all at once, and I tried to involve you in our fun. You reacted by defending yourself, and we've talked about it a lot. Nobody blames you for it. Don't worry, we won't make that mistake again. We really miss you when you're not with us. Everything feels different without you. While today is supposed to be our special day of friendship, we will respect your wishes and not touch in front of you. But we will stay close. If you won't come to us, we'll come to you. Since you're here watching TV, we'll join you. Wherever you go, we'll be right there with you. We've been apart for too long, so you'll just need to get used to having us around from now on. I felt really let down that they were so focused on me. Kirsty and Lorene sat on the bed next to me, while Christopher took the only chair in the room. This wasn't working for me, so I decided to make a change. "Okay, I'm going fishing," I said. "Then we're coming too," Lorene replied. I didn't answer. I grabbed my hat, sunglasses, sunscreen, and shoes and went up on deck. I set a lounge chair on the side of the boat and laid my things down. I got my fishing rod and tackle box from storage. I took a weight from my tackle box and attached it to the fishing line without any hooks or bait, just the weight. I cast it behind the boat and set the reel to hold the line. Then, I placed the rod in a holder at the side of the boat, letting the weight trail behind in the water. I applied sunscreen to all the spots exposed to the sun and settled comfortably in my chair with my hat and sunglasses on. Then I stayed quiet and ignored them. The boat was moving fast, and a nice breeze was blowing. My towel made quiet sounds in the wind, but no one tried to take it from me as before. I heard Christopher say I wasn't really fishing. Without hooks or bait, I couldn't catch anything. The girls wondered if he thought I did it on purpose or if it was a simple mistake. He said he was sure I wasn't mistaken. I was just passing the time. They kept trying to talk to me, pulling their chairs closer and chatting away, but I didn't respond at all. Still, they continued, despite my pretending to fall asleep, which clearly frustrated them. While I acted like I was drifting off, my mind was busy, running through countless plans for escape. I wanted to make sure that when I made my move, it had a high chance of success. I thought through different scenarios, coming up with ideas depending on the situation. My thoughts were interrupted by the smell of delicious food. "Wake up, sleepyhead," Lorene said with a giggle. "It's time for dinner. Here's a hamburger made just the way you like it, with an unopened bag of chips. I even brought you an ice-cold soda. I swear Kirsty didn't touch any of it, but she did tell me what you like on your burger. You can throw it overboard if you want, but why waste good food?" She was right, I wasn't giving anything away by eating. I nodded, took the burger, and started eating. I was hungry, so I figured why not? When I finished, they were still eating next to me. Lorene asked if I wanted more, but I shook my head. No, it was nearing 8:30 p.m. About 20 minutes later, Lorene returned with bowls, spoons, and an ice cream maker. "I hope you saved room for dessert," she said. "I made fresh banana ice cream. Since Kirsty told me banana is your favorite, you get the first bowl." She scooped some ice cream into a bowl and handed it to me. I watched as she filled bowls for herself and the others. They all started eating, and I figured it was safe, so I enjoyed my bowl as well. It was delicious, and I ate it all without saying a word. With the sun setting, I handed her my bowl, put my fishing gear away, and returned to my room. I used the restroom and noticed the smell wasn't exactly pleasant, which amused me. None of them wanted to be in the room with me after that. Once I was done, I climbed into bed, still wearing the paper towel I'd been using as a makeshift covering. Exhausted both physically and mentally, I quickly began to drift off, wondering what the next day would bring. No one disturbed me before I fell asleep. Later, I was jolted awake by someone touching me. I felt a large figure behind me, and it didn't take long to realize it wasn't Kirsty. Lorene was trying to seduce me again. I jumped out of bed. "Lorene? What are you doing? I told you I don't want this. Why are you in my room? Where's Kirsty?" Lorene calmly replied, "This is my boat, Steve. Every room here is mine. You can't keep me from being anywhere on this boat that I want to be." "Oh, really?" I replied, feeling very angry. "Fine. Keep your room. I'll find somewhere else to sleep." I left the room and went to the back deck to the lounge chair I had used before. It was completely dark outside, with no moonlight. I turned on my side and quickly fell asleep again, which didn't usually happen for me in these situations. I lost track of time, but suddenly I felt a presence behind me and a hand that made me uncomfortable. Lorene must have quietly moved her chair next to mine. "Why are you doing this, Lorene?" I asked. "I told you I can go anywhere on this boat. Right now, I want to be here with you. Just relax, Steve, and I'll handle everything," she said. "Remember, this is our special day." "Not at all!" I shouted as I jumped up, grabbed the cushion I had been lying on, and tossed it over the railing into the water. I heard her scream, "No!" as soon as I hit the water. The boat continued on its path without me. This was one of the many plans I had thought about. It wasn't my first choice, but it seemed the best option under the circumstances. The cushion was meant to float, I had checked. Maybe when the sun came up, I'd see an island or another boat that could take me back to shore. Either way, I wanted to be away from what was going on back there. Yes, the ocean was dangerous, but if I held on to the cushion, I should be okay. For some reason, I felt really sleepy. Why was I so tired? Maybe if I just rested on the cushion for a moment. Lorene hurried below deck and flung open their bedroom door, where she found her husband and Kirsty close to each other. "Come quickly. Turn the boat around. Steve jumped overboard and he could drown." "What?" Christopher jumped from the bed and rushed to the wheel. He turned on all the lights and quickly changed the boat's direction. Lorene was holding a bright flashlight as she searched the dark water for Steve. Kirsty began to cry at the thought of losing her husband. "How did this happen, Lorene? You were supposed to watch him until midnight before you started playing around," Christopher said, frustrated. "I got too anxious. As soon as he fell asleep, I started playing with him. I guess he was still awake because he moved to the lounge chair on deck. I joined him again and was just trying to have some fun. I didn't threaten him at all, I promise. He just jumped overboard. There's no moon tonight. I can hardly see anything out there." "Come on, Lorene. When I say to wait, I mean wait. Now look at what you've done. If he drowns, it's on you," Kirsty said angrily. "We'll find him, don't worry. I promise we'll find him," Lorene replied to reassure her. "Enough talking. Call out to him and watch closely. He might not respond well because of the medicine. Look for anything unusual," Christopher ordered as he pointed the boat's bright lights into the water. Lorene gave Kirsty her flashlight and started to use binoculars, scanning the area as best as she could. 3 minutes later, she noticed something on the horizon. "There! About 500 yards to the right. He must have drifted. I see something floating out there. It has to be him. Turn the boat, Christopher. We need to check it out." Christopher turned the boat toward where she pointed. Within 3 minutes, they reached their target. Christopher secured a rope around his waist and jumped into the ocean. He swam as fast as he could. Every second mattered. Soon he reached the floating object and checked for signs of life. "He's alive! He's still breathing but very weak." The girls let out relieved cries at the good news. Christopher slid the rope higher on his body and grabbed the man. "Pull, girls! I've got him! Pull me back to the boat! I want to keep his head above water!" Kirsty and Lorene pulled the rope with all their strength. When they reached the back of the boat, Christopher lifted the man over his shoulder, climbed up the ladder and onto the boat. The two girls did their best to help him gently. Lorene dried him off while Kirsty checked his condition as best as she could. "He's okay," Kirsty said with relief. "He's just very tired from the medicine." Christopher said, "I'm going to carry him back to his bed. He's not fully aware yet. Lorene, let him rest this time, and don't disturb him until 3 a.m., not a minute before, got it?" "I promise," she agreed. "Not until 3 a.m. "Good. Then he's all yours. Just be patient and let him rest." Kirsty added, "Just make sure he's comfortable first. Then you can talk to him." Christopher continued, "Once you wake him, give him your full attention because Kirsty and I will be very busy too." 3 a.m., I'll handle it, she confirmed. "I won't take my eyes off him. If he tries to leave, I will stay right by his side," Lorene laughed. Day 6. Have you ever woken up completely startled? It was strange, almost like being jolted awake. My eyes opened wide and quickly took in my surroundings. It was eerily quiet. I stayed still, unsure of what might happen. As I took stock of my surroundings, I realized I was lying on top of the bed in the room I shared with Kirsty, but she wasn't there. Next to me, Lorene was asleep. I looked closely at the bed, relieved to see no signs that anything inappropriate had happened. There were no sheets or covers, and I couldn't remember how Lorene ended up in the bed with me. My mind was fuzzy, flashes of confusion. Had I dreamed that she tried to approach me? It all seemed too unlikely. The reality was that Lorene had slept beside me, not Kirsty. I started to wonder where my wife could be. It was 6:10 a.m., and the sky was still dark just before dawn. I carefully got out of bed, making sure not to wake Lorene. I needed to figure out what was going on. The bedroom door was left open, so I tiptoed into the main area, quietly closing the door behind me. I was alone, and the feeling of being without clothes was uncomfortable. There was nothing around that I could use to cover myself. I checked the door to the other room, but it was locked, and I heard no sound inside. Was Kirsty in there with Christopher? Then I remembered the apron in the kitchen. Someone had once used it while cooking, so I grabbed it and tied it around my waist. It didn't fully cover me, but it was better than nothing. I noticed the hatch to the deck was open, which was odd since it was usually closed at night. Curious and a bit worried, I quietly climbed the steps and went out to the deck. I heard soft noises coming from the front of the boat. When I got closer, my heart sank. I saw Christopher lying on a cushion with Kirsty nearby. It was clear that something was happening between them, something that left me in shock. I froze, unsure of what to do next. The scene before me was difficult to process. Kirsty, small in size compared to Christopher, was with him in an intimate way that left me speechless. Though I had feared something like this could happen, witnessing it was devastating. My first instinct was to shout, to demand an end to everything, but I found myself frozen. I couldn't move or speak, my mind focused solely on what they were saying. Kirsty spoke softly. "I can hardly wait any longer." Christopher, calm and composed, replied, "The sun will rise in just a few minutes. Let's wait until that moment. It will be unforgettable." She sighed, agreeing. "I've been waiting for this, Christopher, and I can wait a little longer for a perfect moment." He smiled, admiring her. "You've been incredible tonight. No one else could keep up with me like you have." Kirsty responded, "It's been amazing, more than I ever imagined. Being with you has changed everything for me, but I'll always care for Steve. He's a good man, but what we've shared tonight feels different." Christopher nodded, but with a firm tone said, "You can't abandon your life with him. What we have is special, yes, but he's still important to you and he needs to stay in your life. You'll manage that, won't you?" "I understand," she said. "I'll stay with Steve. He's a wonderful father and husband. But whenever I'm with him, a part of me will think of you." Christopher reassured her, "As long as you're happy with him too, that's all that matters." Hearing all of this left me in a state of shock. I didn't know how to react, but I knew that everything had changed. "Will you help me with this?" "I will, my dear. The sun is just about to rise. Come here and give me a kiss as I share my love with you." She leaned in and kissed him deeply. As they did, the sunlight chased away the last bits of night. They both let out happy sounds as they enjoyed their special moment together. I noticed their toes curling, hinting at a big moment. Suddenly, my body reacted in a way I didn't expect. I felt sick and had to throw up right then. The loud noises were hard to ignore. The couple tried to stop, but they couldn't. They continued enjoying each other. I shouted, "I hope you're happy, Kirsty. You got what you wanted the second we left home. You've lost all my respect. You can consider our marriage over when we get back. Both of you can leave." "You must be joking. You've been with Lorene since the early morning. She probably has done more for you than I ever did," she said sharply. "You're mistaken, my wife. Lorene is asleep in her room. We didn't even speak last night. You have the wrong information. Christopher told me that she would be with you starting at 3 a.m. Do you deny it?" "I do deny it. Christopher is just lying." At that moment, Lorene came to join us, rubbing her eyes awake. "What's going on? Why all the noise?" "Kirsty wanted to know what time you woke Steve up this morning," Kirsty said, still upset. "Huh? Oh, that. I'm really sorry. I watched him sleep for a long time and must have fallen asleep myself. I just woke up from all the shouting," Lorene said. Kirsty shouted, "This can't be happening. You were supposed to be with him at 3 a.m. "Well, I haven't yet, but I'm still happy to spend time with you if you want, Steve," Lorene offered. "Looks like you'll have your hands full, Christopher, keeping both women happy. Isn't that what you wanted?" "They won't be getting my attention anymore," I declared firmly. "I'm sorry, Steve," Kirsty said. "I thought you were with her, so I thought it would be fine for me to be with him. Please believe me, I care only for you." "No!" You don't get to be the one who hurts me and then say you care about me. That feels disrespectful. Christopher, do you know what a quitclaim is? Yes, I know what that is, he replied. Good. Then understand this. I give up any claim I might have had on my wife, Kirsty Walters. She is completely yours now, and you can do whatever you want with her. Don't worry about me anymore. She is no longer connected to me. Kirsty was crying loudly as I walked away and went below deck. Lorene looked shocked. I could hear them scolding her for not being attentive. A short while later, Kirsty came into the room with me, still in tears. I don't want to argue, Steve. I realize now that I made a mistake, and I just ask for your forgiveness. But I'm really tired right now. I haven't slept at all. Can you give me a few hours to rest? We can talk later. She sat on the bed next to me and fell asleep almost immediately. I guessed Christopher was doing the same in his room. I understood why they were both so exhausted. I didn't want to stay in the same room with her, so I left and closed the door. Soon after, Lorene joined me in the common area. I assume that Kirsty is sound asleep like Christopher? Yep, I expect them to sleep for a long time. After what happened, I don't want to share a room with her for the rest of this trip. Can you unlock one of the spare bedrooms for me? Lorene thought for a moment. She might have been worried about what her husband would think about me staying in a different room, but she realized it was best to keep the peace. She nodded and opened another room for me. Thank you. I have one more favor to ask, Lorene. This room has towels, curtains, and bed coverings. Can I use those, or at least get one of my swimsuits to wear? She didn't argue and went to her room. She returned shortly with something. Here's your swimsuit. Since Christopher will be sleeping for a while, I can only give you this for now. I'm trying to help you, Steve. If you wear just this, I will wear both parts of my swimsuit. Would you prefer that, or something different? I thought about her offer. It wasn't perfect, but I could agree to this once to get something back. Well, since you've already seen me, the swimsuit doesn't seem too revealing anymore. We have a deal, Lorene, as long as you keep your word and wear both parts around me. She smiled and went to her room. While she was away, I put on the Speedo and adjusted it as best as I could. She returned wearing her bright red bikini, which didn't cover much. Stick to our agreement, Steve. You said you would wear just the Speedo, remember? Please take off the apron, she said. I hesitated, but then handed it to her. Since we both got some rest, I'm going to make breakfast, she said, putting on the apron over her bikini. What would you like to eat? You can make whatever you want for yourself, Lorene, and I'll make mine. It's not that I don't trust you, but I just don't, I laughed. I was going to make bacon and eggs. What are you thinking of? Me? I was hoping for a stack of pancakes. That sounds great, she said while handing me the apron. I'll gather the ingredients while you cook. We can share the meal. Does that sound good? That sounds good. I realized she was trying to get on my good side. It didn't matter. I knew I could stay focused. With the other two out of the picture for now, there was no tension between us. We prepared a large batch of pancakes, topped them with butter and syrup. It was the first meal I had enjoyed with someone in a long time, and her company was nice. We chatted about light topics to fill the silence, and she smartly avoided any touchy subjects. I helped her clean up afterward. I'm going to go up on deck, I told her. I'd rather not be near those who betray trust, even if they're not here right now. You can do what you wish, Lorene. Oh, I'm coming with you, Steve, and in the best way possible. That's fine as long as you keep a little space and don't try to distract me. I promise to be on my best behavior. I've heard that before, I chuckled. True to her word, she sat near me, but not too close. After half an hour of enjoying the view of the ocean, something thrilling happened. Look, over there, a whale, I exclaimed. Where? She asked. On the left side, right over there, I pointed. It was a humpback whale. Seeing such a large creature in the ocean was incredible. No amount of television could compare to this experience. Lorene and I quickly took out our phones to record the moment. The whale swam alongside our boat for about 30 minutes before it disappeared. I usually would want to share this with Kirsty. Honestly, I was glad the others missed it. Lorene and I spent the rest of the morning in a relaxed routine, which was a welcome break from the earlier stress. Just before lunch, the sailboat's navigation system beeped, signaling that we arrived at our destination, and then it automatically adjusted the sails to slow us down. I noticed the signal and dropped the anchor to keep our boat steady. Lorene and I had a nice lunch together. We were getting along well. She didn't try to make any moves on me. She did glance at me a few times earlier, but she said nothing about it. At 1:30 p.m., I heard some noise from below deck. Lorene went to check in with them and update on what was happening. I could hear the three of them talking, but I couldn't catch what they were saying. I suspected I was the main topic. The smell of food came from the kitchen, making it clear they were hungry after working hard the night before. Soon after, Kirsty came up on deck, still without clothing. "Steve, we need to talk about what happened this morning. I have a lot to explain. Can we have a calm conversation?" she asked. "That depends on you, Kirsty." "In what way?" "Put on your regular swimsuit or some clothes, and then I'll talk to you. If you don't, we might as well be in a fish's company." "But today is a nude day, Steve." "I understand your choice, but I don't follow that. If you follow those rules, you won't hear a word from me. Goodbye, Miss Salinas." She didn't like when I used her last name instead of her married name. "I have no one to answer to. I'm still Walters, and I will always keep that name," she said firmly. She continued to press me for answers, but I stayed quiet, which frustrated her. Eventually, she went back below deck. A little while later, she came back wearing a simple swimsuit. "Okay, I've done what you asked. Can we talk like adults now without shouting? We really need to sort this out." "Okay, Kirsty. Since you put on something, I'm willing to talk now. What do you want to discuss?" "I'm sorry, Steve. I thought you were with Lorene, and that's why I was with him." I wanted to react strongly to that statement, but I stayed calm. "Can I ask something about that?" "Of course, ask me anything. I want us to clear the air." "I heard you and Christopher this morning. You two were together all night, right?" "Pretty much. But I wouldn't have been with him if I thought you weren't doing the same." "I see. When do you think you and he first got close?" "Oh, I'm not sure. We weren't keeping track of time. We just started kissing and it went from there. I'm not looking for a specific time. Just a rough guess. I would say it was around 11 p.m. last night. Why do you ask?" 11. Got it. And didn't Lorene say she would wake me up at 3 a.m.? "Yes, that's right. You were asleep and she planned to wake you at 3. So you're saying you were with him at 11 p.m., knowing I was asleep and wouldn't wake until 3 a.m.? You thought I would do the same for 4 hours when I was actually asleep? Now you're overanalyzing. Let me put it this way. I was with him because I thought you would also be with someone else starting at 3 a.m. What's the issue with that? The issue is that you were with him while hoping I would be with someone too later on. That doesn't sit right with me. I never meant for any of this to happen, Steve. Please believe me, she pleaded. I don't have to believe anything, Miss Salinas. Her reaction showed that this upset her. Come on, honey. Deep down, you know you want to get even. Go ahead and do what you want. We're out in the ocean on this ship. Christopher is our captain. His word is law. I told you from the start that everything that happened was based on his orders. You have to see that we have to follow his lead. We don't have a choice, she explained. Is that really your best argument? I could agree with you, but then we'd both be mistaken. I would explain it to you, but I don't have the right tools. It's amusing how you think I care about your thoughts. Everything you just said sounded better in your head, didn't it? What about me? I haven't taken part in any of his wrong actions. Yes, and look where that has gotten you. As a punishment for not following his orders, he put you in a tough spot while we went ashore and had a good time without you. You see, you didn't comply and face the consequences. I followed his orders and was rewarded. You could be too if you just went along with things, dear. So you're choosing him over your husband and agree that I deserved this? Is that what you want me to tell our children about this trip? Should I reveal everything their mother has done with the captain since we left and what I refused to do? She didn't know how to respond and tried a different approach. Sweetheart, you know I was inexperienced when we first met. You are the only man I have ever been with. He has a remarkable physique. Can't you see the difference between his body and yours? I was drawn to him like a moth to a flame. I couldn't help myself. The wine made me feel free, and I let myself go with him. He had a strong presence, and as the captain, I followed his lead without thinking. I've always worked hard and have been loyal to you since we married. Don't you think I deserve this? That's quite a thing to say. It's like you think there's no tomorrow. You don't seem to understand how much you've damaged our marriage. I can't accept what you're doing. If this is what you want, Kirsty, do it without me. You're being unreasonable. Tomorrow does exist. Even if we never see them again after this trip, we will have memories from this one experience. Since we met the Belvederes, I've dreamed of being with him. You can't deny that you've thought about being with Lorene. She has chosen you to be the father of her children. You should see that as an honor, along with the wealth it could bring us. On the contrary, I have no interest in being with her. Yes, she's attractive, but she is not my wife. You have broken our marriage vows, while I've stayed true. This is your dream, not mine. We once shared dreams, but that has changed. Don't you want me to be happy? When I was with him, I felt happier than ever. I reached for her hands, and she eagerly accepted. Then I unexpectedly took her wedding ring off her finger. I took off my own ring, too, held both in one hand, and tossed them into the ocean with all my strength. She screamed and cried. Well, as long as you're happy, I guess that's what matters. I've never felt more miserable. My heart feels so broken that the pieces are tiny. Why did you do that? You're impossible. I hoped you would see things differently, but you're too stubborn. You can't say I didn't try, Steve. Now you'll have to deal with the captain. I wondered what she meant by that, but I couldn't ask her because she went below deck. I decided not to follow her. The three of them came up and started getting ready for a dive. Christopher was setting up his dive gear, and he was helping with mine, too. All three of them were not wearing anything. Kirsty approached me and said, "We're all going diving, Steve. Captain's orders. You have to join us." Well, it looks like it's happening. No thanks. I'll sit this one out. You all have fun. I'll just relax here and soak up some sun. Christopher jumped in. That's not an option, Steve. Lorene won't go if you don't. Plus, we can't leave you here by yourself. I can't trust you right now after what you did to Kirsty when you threw away your wedding rings. Oh, come on, Christopher. I'm sure she will get over it and love the new ring you'll buy for her more than the one I gave her on our wedding day. I've already told you I'm not diving with you guys anymore. You'll have a lot more fun without me. No way, Kirsty cut in. How can we have fun underwater if you're not there with me? Look, I'm not going on this dive, and I'm not interested in anything else with anyone, especially not her. Haven't you had enough? I bet you're feeling the effects of last night still. Oh, you're going, whether you want to or not, Captain's orders. If you won't help me with our fantasy, then maybe I'll just have to do it with someone else, she said. For some reason you think I care. We've already talked about what you are, so if you want to be with someone else, go ahead. But I wouldn't want to be anywhere near you. My words were met with silence. Kirsty looked at me with anger after my refusal. As I said, Steve, you're going diving with us. Kirsty and I will pair up, and Lorene will be with you. You can keep your swim shorts on for now. You can put on your dive gear yourself, or I'll help you with it. When we're ready, I'll lock your wrist to Lorene's with this special tether. You'll have to stay close to her at all times. If I get a hint that you're bothering her, I'll bring you back and deal with you. Do you understand? You're the only bully here. You're the only one being aggressive. If you want to see a bully, take a look in the mirror, I replied, feeling I had made my point. Reluctantly, I put on my dive gear and got ready. Lorene smiled at me each time I looked her way. As we stood to enter the water, Christopher locked us together as he said he would. We began our descent, with Lorene and me leading while Christopher and Kirsty followed behind. I didn't realize what was happening until it was too late. Before I could react, Christopher had unsheathed his dive knife, and with 2 swift cuts, he sliced through the sides of my swimsuit. In an instant, he pulled it off, leaving me just as exposed as everyone else. I hated the situation. I wasn't going to be an active participant in this dive. I simply adjusted my position in the water so I would stay neutral, neither sinking nor floating, just hovering in place. Lorene was pulling at a line to drag me along, but I wasn't contributing any effort. This dive clearly had a different purpose, and I wasn't interested. I remembered Kirsty talking about how exciting it would be to try something adventurous underwater while scuba diving. But we'd only ever dived with groups, never in this kind of semi-private setting. I knew she had wanted to experience this. When we reached the bottom, Lorene stood upright, and I stayed horizontal in the water beside her. Kirsty approached me from behind, trying to get my attention, but I pushed her away. I could see the hurt in her eyes through her mask, knowing I was rejecting her in front of everyone. Maybe she thought I would give in, but I didn't. Then Christopher appeared. Kirsty shifted her attention to him, placing her hands on him instead. What followed was a moment that I wasn't ready to witness. They both removed their diving gear but kept their regulators in to continue breathing. They stayed weighted down, yet free of most of their equipment. They floated together in a way that was too intimate for me to watch. It was clear they were focused on each other, leaving me to my own thoughts. Lorene seemed to notice the moment and decided to approach me, perhaps thinking I would change my mind. But I remained distant, watching the scene unfold, still feeling disconnected from it all. She reached out suddenly and touched me in a way I didn't appreciate. I quickly moved my hand and pushed her mask up off her face. She let go of me right away and used both hands to fix her mask and clear it of water by blowing through her nose. This is something all students learn when they train to be divers. I wasn't putting her in any danger. She understood my message and didn't try to touch me again. Christopher was too focused on what he was doing with my wife to notice us. After a while, I heard them both make sounds underwater. Lorene and I knew what that meant. It was clear when Christopher helped Kirsty rise up. A cloudy mist filled the water around them. I didn't care anymore. In my mind, I had already let go of our marriage. They put their dive gear back on and checked their air supply. They decided to come up since being under the water can make you breathe harder. Christopher and Kirsty were the first to reach the top, while Lorene stayed back with me for some reason. She acted like she was interested in some fish nearby, but I could tell she was just buying time. Once she saw them climb back onto the boat, she gave me a thumbs up, and we slowly started our ascent. When we finished, she took her time getting onto the boat and left me last without any help. When I took off my gear, no one else was on deck. I assumed they were drying off, so I went below to do the same. They were already dry when I got down. Lorene was still drying her long hair, but looked fine otherwise. I checked all the rooms, but none were open. "Hey, can one of you unlock a room so I can get a towel?" I asked, feeling exposed. "It's warm enough. You'll dry off soon without one," Kirsty replied. "Now that you're just as naked as we are, you won't be alone anymore, so you can get used to it. Staying shut away in a room isn't good for you. Don't you think it's time to join us?" she added. "I feel like I'm less of a person to you now than before we left. Kirsty, you've lost sight of who you are. You allowed greed and desire to take over. Our wedding vows mean a lot to me, but it seems you don't feel the same. You've broken them," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm going up to dry off on deck," I said. Ignoring me completely, Kirsty shouted, "Not without all of us!" The others followed her and gathered around me on deck. I quickly made a decision. "What a nice afternoon for a swim," I said, slipping past them and diving over the railing into the water. It felt strangely familiar, as if I had done it before. Christopher was fit, but not built for swimming. Runners and swimmers have similar builds, and I was a runner. All three of them joined me in the water. This was my chance to resist. If they wanted me to be out here with them, I would play along. I thought, if they can't catch me, I can enjoy myself. I swam around them playfully while the girls called out, annoyed at my refusal to cooperate. Christopher struggled in the water. He could swim but was slow and soon tired out. After about half an hour, he called the girls back to the boat. He lowered the small boat into the water and all three climbed in. He started the motor, and they quickly approached me. "Looks like your plan to avoid us has failed, Steve," Lorene said. "You're caught now. Why don't you come aboard with us?" I kept swimming, ignoring them. I enjoyed the side stroke. It was my favorite, and I could do it for a long time. By staying on my side, they couldn't see me clearly. Another good thing was that they were in the boat, and I was away from them in the water. I didn't have to see them closely. I swam in circles, keeping a good distance from the main boat for a couple of hours. Eventually, I decided to swim back when they insisted it was time to make dinner. I was quite hungry after all my swimming. Once on deck, I lay down on a lounge chair to dry off. Then I went inside, found a chair, and covered myself with a small pillow from the couch. Earlier, I had gone to the bathroom in the ocean, so that worked out since I was unable to use the bathroom on the boat. The girls were busy in the kitchen preparing dinner while Christopher sat on the couch flipping through channels. He asked what I wanted to watch, but I told him I preferred listening to music. He handed me the remote while I looked for some songs to play and turned up the volume. At first, the three of them danced to the music, but soon the lyrics began to catch their attention. The songs I picked included "I'm Not the Only One" by Sam Smith, "You Ought to Know" by Alanis Morissette, "Unfaithful" by Rihanna, "You Know I'm No Good" by Amy Winehouse, "Heard It From a Friend" by REO Speedwagon, "Me and Mrs. Jones" by Billy Paul, Cheated by Boys Like Girls, Before He Cheats by Kelly Clarkson, You're No Good by Linda Ronstadt. Kirsty noticed what I was doing first and quietly told Lorene, who then told Christopher. He wasn't happy with me and turned the music off because every song was about cheating. I asked Christopher, "Why did you turn off my music? It gets me thinking about my divorce." Kirsty jumped in, "You would never divorce me. We both know you care about me too much." I couldn't help but respond, "Kirsty, to use an example from the Frasier TV show, Cornell University has a special microscope that can show images of atoms, the very building blocks of everything. Even with that, I couldn't find any interest in staying married to you." Instead of crying, she got mad but stayed quiet. I added, "Your brain makes a grain of sand look big." Ignoring my comments, they invited me to join them for dinner once it was ready. I declined but sensed something was off. I told them I'd eat in my chair in the common area. The small space at the table felt too close for comfort. I wanted them to feel my rejection more. They followed me to the common area where we each ate from our plates. They tried to talk to me, but I brushed off every attempt. I could tell Christopher was getting more upset, but he stayed quiet, which was unusual. Around 6 p.m., the girls finished cleaning and came back to the common area. That's when my situation took a surprising turn. Christopher approached me casually as if he was simply walking past me. Suddenly, he grabbed me and put me in a hold. Next, he moved me across the room next to the stainless steel grab bar, which I recognized all too well. Kirsty quickly helped him by securing my wrists behind me with handcuffs attached to the bar. This left me standing against the wall, feeling very exposed. I felt completely out of control, though not as restrained as being tied up. It was still deeply humiliating. Christopher began to speak. "I bet you're wondering what's coming next, Steve. Well, you're about to find out. The three of us have had enough of your superior attitude, and it's time to put an end to it. From now on, you'll follow my instructions. No questions asked. You might think you can resist, but you'd be wrong. With my resources, I get what I want. After getting close to you and Kirsty, Lorene wanted you as her partner, and that's exactly what's going to happen. I won Kirsty over long ago, even before you threw that childish fit earlier. The girls wanted me to keep it quiet and surprise you, but I've decided to let you know exactly what's happening." He continued, "You've upset me one too many times, so now you're going to feel the consequences. You've hurt my wife, made her cry, and rejected her over and over. You've insulted your own wife, and throwing your wedding ring into the ocean was just too much. This trip was supposed to be fun for all of us, but you've ruined it for them, and now you'll pay for that. There's nothing you or anyone else can do to stop me. Your childish behavior ends tonight." I replied, "What do you think you can do to threaten me? Kick me again? Go ahead. I already have 2 great kids, and I'm not interested in being part of your plans." Christopher burst out laughing. "You think you still have a choice here, Steve, but you don't. Your wife made a deal with me, and now you belong to me. After tonight, you'll do exactly what we ask. You won't divorce Kirsty, you'll stay with her, and you'll help Lorene have the children she wants. You and Kirsty will remain in our lives just as we planned." The weight of his words settled over me, and I knew that everything was about to change. "I'll make sure to spend time with your wife whenever I want, and I'll be teaching her how to satisfy a man even better. Everything I've said will happen, just as sure as my name is Christopher Belvedere." I responded sarcastically, "And how exactly do you plan to pull this off? You have some kind of mind control device?" He laughed. "No, I don't need anything that fancy. Drugs will do the trick. Remember when we mentioned a business trip to Montserrat? That's where I'm going to get what I need. I'm meeting with a friend, Gerald, to buy a variety of drugs enough to make sure you'll follow our lead. I've brought along gold coins and cash for the deal. Sure, it's risky with the strict laws there, but it'll be worth it. Once we get back, we have 3 more weeks to break your resistance completely. The drugs will wear down your will, and soon you'll be doing whatever we want. Eventually, you won't even need the drugs, you'll just crave the life we'll pull you into." I stared at him and said coldly, "Christopher, if I had a gun with 2 bullets and was stuck in a room with you, Hitler, and Osama bin Laden, I'd shoot you twice. And if we ever end up alone in a room together again, only one of us will leave. I don't care which one." He smirked. "Big talk from someone who won't be able to stop me. I'll own you just like I own both of our wives. Let me show you real power." He called Lorene over and instructed her to bend over the couch, which she did without hesitation. "Kirsty, come help," he continued. She followed his directions, assisting him as he demonstrated his dominance. It was a moment meant to intimidate me, and I understood that his power over the situation was meant to be overwhelming. The scene before me was meant to make a point, but it only fueled my resolve. I knew this wasn't over, and I wasn't ready to give in. After a few moments, Christopher stepped back. "I was getting close," he said. Then he turned to Kirsty. "Now come over here. Kneel and put your hands behind your back." She followed his instructions. "Good. Now look at Steve the whole time," he continued. Kirsty obeyed without hesitation, her focus on carrying out his orders. The situation unfolding before me felt surreal. Kirsty was performing the task with an eagerness I hadn't seen before, as though she was determined to please him. The dynamic between them left me feeling more and more disconnected, almost numb. As she finished, Christopher complimented her, clearly pleased with her actions. He then ordered her to kiss me, trying to further humiliate me. "Now go give your husband a kiss and make sure he knows who's in charge." I couldn't stay silent anymore. "You're sick, Christopher," I shouted. "Kirsty, don't even think about coming near me. I don't want to hurt you, but I will if you try anything." My anger surged, and I made it clear I wouldn't tolerate being a part of this any longer. Christopher's face darkened. "You're really pushing your luck, Steve. You think you can defy me? You'll regret it soon enough. Once you're under my control, you'll be the one doing everything I say, just like she did. Mark my words." Kirsty laughed at his threat, and I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. I shook my head in disbelief. In a moment of frustration, I spoke up again, perhaps to deflect the tension. "Christopher, you need to calm down. This isn't about power, and it's certainly not going to end the way you think." But deep down, I knew things were spiraling beyond my control, and I would need to find a way to stop this madness. "You seem too tough to be gay," I joked, laughing at my own comments. But then I got angry. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "Kirsty, you better hope someone steals this boat and gets rid of me while you're away. If I make it through this, not only will I leave you, but you'll never see me again. And Lorene, I would rather not have kids than bring a child into this mess. I regret ever meeting any of you, especially you, Kirsty. The kids, Jenna and I, will be just fine without you. They don't need a bad example for a mother." Kirsty started crying from my harsh words. Lorene looked shocked. Even if they forced me to submit to their plans, it would still feel like a small win since I knew my true feelings. Ignoring me, Christopher said, "Come on, girls. Let's ignore this guy and get ready for the party." As they dressed for the night, I stood there feeling humiliated, my mind racing with thoughts. My pride was the only thing they hadn't taken from me yet, but if they went through with their plans, my dignity would be lost. I couldn't let that happen. They had already taken so much from me. How much more would I let them? But what could I do now? Would I stay a victim? I tried to sort through the many options I had. They looked nice as they came to me in the living area before leaving. Then Christopher remembered something. "The last time we left you here alone, things got messy. If I leave you like this with your hands tied, you might try to make a mess again. So here's the deal, Steve. I will untie one arm if you promise me two things." "What are they?" "I'm not doing anything crazy for you." He laughed. "No, that's not it. Lorene will bring a big pot from the boat. If you need to go while we're gone, will you promise to use the pot instead of making a mess on the floor?" "I can do that," I agreed. "What's the second promise?" "If I free one arm, I need your word that you won't hurt yourself again. Promise me those two things and I'll untie you." I paused for a moment, making it seem like I was unsure, but secretly I needed that one arm free to execute my plan. "Deal." "Wait a moment before you let him go," Lorene said. "I want him to understand who's in charge," Lorene said boldly. She approached me, placing her hands on me in a way that felt unsettling. "These are mine now," she added confidently. "Kirsty handed you over to Christopher and he gifted you to me." I was surprised that Kirsty didn't object or say anything in response. Looking straight at me, Lorene continued, "When we get back from the island, you're going to give me everything you've got. I know you're not much compared to Christopher, but that won't stop me from getting what I want," she said with a smirk, giving me a playful slap before walking away laughing. Suddenly, Christopher grabbed my arm and pinned it against the wall, making sure I couldn't move. "Kirsty, unlock his other wrist and attach it to the grab bar," he ordered, and she did as he instructed. "Oh, and Steve," Christopher said, turning to me with a mocking grin, "I have something to keep you busy while we're gone." He picked up a remote and switched the input on the large TV in the room. A video began to play, showing a recording of him and my wife in his bedroom. You probably didn't know this, but I had a high-tech security system installed on the boat to protect the property and a valuable painting we have on board. It records everything, every conversation, every move except in the bathrooms. The system stores all the footage for a month, and as a backup, it uploads everything to the cloud. So, nothing is missed. Christopher grinned as the video continued playing. "While we're away, you can watch how your wife spent hours with me enjoying herself. Maybe you'll learn a thing or two. I'll leave the sound on loud so you don't miss a single detail, every word, every sound, every moment." With that, he left the video playing, a twisted reminder of the power he held over the situation, while I remained helplessly tied, forced to witness it all. "We wouldn't want you to get bored while we're gone," he said in a teasing way. The girls laughed at his comments about me, waved, and said goodbye as they went up to the deck. I tried to ignore them. Then, I felt the vibrations from the winch as it lowered the small boat into the water. The TV was too loud, and I couldn't hear the boat's engine starting, so I waited for 10 minutes to think about my escape plan, especially after what Christopher had just told me. The ship's security system was recording everything all the time, uploading to the cloud for safety. This meant that all my actions were being captured, and he would eventually see them. I wanted to escape without being noticed, but now I realized he had eyes and ears everywhere. Come on, I urged myself. Adapting was key to surviving. Sometimes, to survive, you must be more clever than ever before. My dad used to say, "Don't fight back, move forward." But my mom always said everything happens for a reason. Right now, I couldn't see the reason for this. I used my engineering skills to come up with a new plan. I thought carefully about everything I knew about the boat, and then saw it. On the wall, about 18 inches from the grab bar, was the emergency panic button that Christopher had mentioned on my first day. Pressing it would turn off all power to everything. I didn't want to make my actions obvious to anyone who would watch the recordings later, so I planned my every step carefully. I stood with my back to the wall and moved quietly to the switch behind me, pretending to be interested in something happening across the room. After a few minutes, I bent my arm behind my back as if scratching an itch and kept it there. I waited a little longer before tapping my fist against the wall softly, hoping it would sound like someone was approaching from the gangway. "Kirsty? Christopher? Laureen, did you come back for something?" I called out, looking toward the gangway. Then I slipped my fingers behind the button and held it tightly, pretending to be surprised. I looked in shock toward the gangway and exclaimed, "Who are you? What do you want?" With that, I pulled the button to cut all power to the boat. The light dimmed as my eyes adjusted to the little light coming through the windows. The boat had no power at all, so the recording system was useless. I reached for the paper towel cabinet and pulled out some rolls to find what I was looking for. The hacksaw! It was still there. Since nothing was being recorded, I was in the clear. I used the saw to cut the chain on the handcuffs, freeing myself to move around the boat. I went up to the deck. I felt nervous, like a shy squirrel, not knowing where anyone else was. The smaller boat was out of sight, so I felt safe standing up and moving around on deck. We were anchored about 1.5 miles from the island port of Montserrat. I hoped the wind would go my way. As I stood still, the breeze blew from the warm island out to sea. The front of the boat was facing the island, which helped it move smoothly with the wind. I remembered an old saying, "Chance favors the prepared mind." I was amazed at my luck. This helped the next part of my plan work. There was a big manual lever on the anchor chain housing. Pulling it was hard, but it eased the pressure enough to pull the pin holding the anchor chain. I took out the pin and let go of the lever. Christopher had told me that in an emergency, if the anchor winch didn't work, the chain could be loosened and dropped, allowing the boat to float away. I heard the chain slide out and drop into the water. The boat was no longer tied down. I could feel myself drifting away from the island thanks to the wind. It was going perfectly. With that done, I hurried back to the cabin. I knew there were emergency flashlights stored all over the boat. I grabbed one and took the hacksaw with me to the engine room. Once I was there, I opened the workbench vise, put part of the handcuff that was on my wrist in it, tightened it, and sawed it in two. Finally, I was free. Next, I needed to find my passport. I hoped it hadn't been moved from the Pelican box. I got the security bit, took off the screws, pulled out the waterproof box, and emptied it onto the workbench. Yes, all 4 passports were still there. I had made a list in my head of what to take. The rules don't allow more than $5,000 in cash as carry-on, so I counted it out. I took exactly $5,000, $2,000 of my own money, and $3,000 of Christopher's, and put the cash inside the empty box. I found the gold coins he had brought, too. There were only 4 coins left because he had taken 6 to the island to trade. I tossed all 4 coins into the box along with 4 passports, my house and car keys, and my wallet. I checked and saw there was enough room left in the box for some other items I needed. There were many important papers in the girls' bags, but I decided to leave them behind. I closed the box and snapped the latches shut. I had other tasks to complete in the engine room. First, I worked on the fuel tank. I closed 2 valves that controlled the diesel fuel line and the tank vent line to fully isolate the tank. Next, I looked for a socket and ratchet to take off the bolts that provided access to the desalination machine for cleaning. Within 5 minutes, I removed all the bolts and set the flanges aside but left the pipe valves closed for now. I would come back later for my last task. With a flashlight and the Pelican box in hand, I returned to the common area and searched for the security recorder Christopher had just shown me. It was hidden at the back of the AV equipment rack. I pulled it out, managing to remove it with some effort. There was a small access door on the back that opened easily, revealing 2 hard drives inside. They were designed so I could easily swap them out. I did not need the recorder itself since it was too big for the Pelican box. Instead, I pulled out both hard drives by pressing the plastic tabs on the sides, which released them so I could unplug them. I placed both drives into the Pelican box. The Belvedere's room was still locked. I quickly went to the engine room to grab a mini sledgehammer. With a few firm hits, the door swung open and I began to search for my clothes. The first item I found was the Speedo I had worn before. I put it on, so I was no longer without clothes, even if it didn't matter since no one else was around. One of the closets held all my clothes. I selected a pair of nice slacks, a collared shirt, a belt, socks, boxer shorts, tennis shoes, and a hand towel. Finally, I had some real clothes. I stuffed my socks inside one shoe and my belt inside the other. Then I neatly packed the shoes and clothes into the Pelican box, leaving a little space for one more important item. I quickly checked for cell phones and found mine, Kirsty's, and Loreen's. Christopher must have taken his with him to the island. I turned off all 3 phones and left them on the boat to prevent any tracking. Next, I went up on deck with the Pelican box and checked the boat deck. The only loose items were some lounge chairs and cushions. Everything else was secured. I tossed the chairs and cushions into the cabin to make sure they wouldn't float away and reveal that the boat was going down. Then I looked through Christopher's scuba gear. His weight belt had 2 heavy weights on it. I took one weight off and put it in a box. I lowered the box into the water to see if it would float or sink. It floated because of the air inside, so I added the second weight and tried again. This time the box started to sink. That was just what I needed. I wanted the box to sink, not float. I placed the box back on the deck and thought about my next step. I checked every room on one side of the boat and opened all the windows, leaving the other side closed. The windows were about 12 inches wide. They had screens to keep things out while letting air in. Then I went to the engine room and wondered if I missed anything. Nothing came to mind, so I opened both big valves for the water system. Water started pouring in like a fountain. I was going to sink the boat. I went back to the main area and opened every door. Feeling good about my plans, I went back up on deck. I closed the gangway hatch and locked it from the outside. This would keep everything inside the boat as it sank and stopped anything from floating away. Water rushed into the boat while air escaped through the windows, causing the boat to tilt under the weight of the water. I could see the island clearly from the boat before I released the anchor, but now it felt much farther away. I could feel the boat leaning as it took on water. Next, I got the scuba gear ready. I grabbed an air cylinder and connected my gear to it. I set out my mask and fins to prepare for my dive. Then I found an underwater scooter that was fully charged. I double-checked the compass that would lead me to the island and attached it to the scooter so I could easily see it. I took the rope that Lorene used for her camera, clipped it to my gear, and let it hang. I put on the weight belt and my other gear, then slipped into the ocean. I didn't need to jump because the boat was already sinking quickly. I tied the other end of the rope to the important pelican box. It meant a lot to me. The underwater scooter had its own rope, which I attached to my gear to keep it safe in case I dropped it. I stayed at the surface and watched the boat go under. It tilted to one side as the air escaped. I was both fascinated and saddened as the expensive sailboat and the valuable painting turned on their side and sank into the water. I looked around in all directions and saw nothing but a distant island. There were no other boats or people nearby. I was completely alone and focused on my escape. I didn't want to risk being seen if the others returned to the boat from the island, but I thought they would be gone for a while. An hour had already passed, so I decided against swimming openly to the island. I let some air out of my gear, which helped me sink into the water. I settled at about 15 feet deep. I checked my compass and turned on the scooter to move quickly and quietly, pulling the pelican box with me. I figured there would be enough air and battery to cover the distance since the scooter used little energy. I checked my dive watch and took quick breaths above water every 10 minutes to confirm my direction and ensure no one was near. While diving, boat engines can be heard from far away because sound travels better underwater than in the air. Thankfully, my trip was calm. As I approached the island, I could finally see the bottom even as it got dark. There were many coral reefs, so I knew I was close to the shore. I came up briefly to check if anyone was at the beach where I planned to land. The main docking piers were about a mile away. I spotted some hotels off to the right and a few houses nearby. To my left was an industrial area, but it seemed quiet, so I aimed for that spot. Once I was about 50 yards from the shore, I swam down to the bottom near the coral reef. The bottom was about 35 feet below the surface, dotted with beautiful elkhorn coral. I took off my fins and tucked them below the edge of the reef along with the scooter. The scooter's rope kept everything secure under the reef. I took off all my scuba gear except for my mask and pushed the rest deep under the coral. I emptied the air from my buoyancy control device so nothing would float up and be seen. I used the rope from the pelican box to tie up the tank and the buoyancy device, making sure they stayed hidden underwater. If anyone found that scuba gear, they could keep it. There was nothing on it with my name or any information about me. Finally, I hid my mask too. I took a last breath from my regulator before turning off the tank. Taking the handle of the pelican box, which connected me to the outside world, I swam gently to the surface, careful to let out air to keep my lungs safe. Then, I swam over to the nearby pier and climbed the ladder to get onto the wooden surface. The big building nearby seemed to be involved in shipping sand and gravel. Since it was getting dark, I thought they were probably closed for the day. I saw 4 trash dumpsters nearby and walked over, hoping to stay unnoticed. I was glad I had made it this far without being seen. I opened the pelican box, took out a hand towel, and dried myself off. Once I was dry, I quickly changed out of my swimwear into my street clothes. Being fully dressed felt amazing. I felt almost normal again. I no longer needed the swimwear or the weights, so I tossed them and the towel into the closest dumpster. This made the box much lighter. It was larger than I needed, but I didn't have anything else to use. I guess I missed that part of my plan. Nobody's perfect. I started walking toward the main piers about a mile away, where Christopher said they would dock for their visit to the island. I stayed close to the shore and tried not to stand out. Halfway to the piers, I passed more hotels with families enjoying evening walks on the beach. I missed Jenna and my kids a lot. After 30 minutes, I could see the main docks. Their small boat was still tied to the pier. The 3 people I was watching were still on the island. I needed to wait and remain hidden. My plan depended on them not knowing whether I was okay. It felt like I was in a movie, and my heart was racing. I found a convenience store nearby where I was concealed behind some palm trees. I thought about getting a soda, but remembered it was important for my plan that very few people saw me who might recognize me later. I stayed hidden. A few people walked by on the beach but didn't pay much attention to me. About 30 minutes later, the group came back to the small boat. My heart raced when I saw them. My hands were shaking. Christopher was carrying a small bag, which I figured had something they would use on me. They were acting very friendly, and Christopher was helping the women into the boat in a way that made it seem like they were having fun together. There was a lot of laughter, probably excited about what they planned to do. Christopher started the motor, and they headed back toward where the sailboat was. They had no idea I had escaped and was hiding nearby. Soon they would be confused to find the boat missing. Without power, the boat's electronics could not send out a signal. The last place it was seen was where it had been anchored. The small boat also worked as a safety raft. It had a search and rescue transponder that still worked but only helped in rescues. They were not lost. The bigger boat was. When I felt sure they were far enough away, I went to the waterfront wharf. All the boats there were quiet. I needed to find a ride quickly. I noticed a lot of people at a bar about 2 blocks down, so I walked over to check it out. I didn't like that I stood out a bit by carrying a Pelican box that looked like a small suitcase. I set it on my lap when I sat on a bar stool. Before coming in, I had taken some cash from the box and put it in my pocket to keep from drawing attention. "What can I get you, sir?" the bartender asked politely. "Can I have a soda and a bag of pretzels, please?" "Of course, sir. Coming right up." He seemed a bit irritated that I wasn't ordering any alcohol, which usually would have meant a bigger tip. When he brought my drink and snacks, I asked, "I'm sorry. I'm new here and just arrived recently. Is there an airport on this island that can get me back to the U.S.? "Sorry, sir, there are no non-stop flights to the U.S., so most travelers go to nearby islands like Antigua or Barbuda through V.C. Byrd International Airport. From Antigua, 2 airlines have flights to Montserrat. Fly Montserrat and SVG Air. The flight takes about 20 minutes. I've done it many times." It then hit me that I would need my passport to fly from the local airport, and that would leave a trace for Christopher to find out I was gone. I wanted to leave the island quietly. "Is there a boat captain here who could take me for a trip?" I asked. He looked around the big room and pointed to a tall man sitting alone with a bottle of beer. "Thanks. Can I have a bottle of the same beer?" He quickly placed one on the bar for me. I gave him 3 $20 bills and said, "Thanks. Keep the change." "Excuse me, can I join you for a moment?" I politely asked as I set my opened bottle in front of him. "You just bought a seat. Help yourself," he laughed. "I heard you have access to a boat for private trips." "I do. I can set something up for tomorrow. What's your plan?" "I need to get to Antigua tonight. If I pay extra, can we leave right away?" "Antigua? Why not fly? It's cheaper and faster. They can get you there in under 30 minutes. It would take me all night by boat." I knew I had to explain so he wouldn't think I was doing something wrong. I thought some truth might work. "I found out my wife is with another man. I just want to get away from her and let her do what she wants. But I don't want her to know I left. I'm very unhappy," I said, forcing a smile. "Ah, deceit and betrayal. I know that feeling too well. So you want to get to Antigua without being followed. I'm not keen on taking you all the way by boat tonight. But my brother-in-law has a private seaplane and does charters to Antigua. I might convince him to fly you tonight, but it will cost you. He's on the other side of Montserrat." "Do you take U.S. cash?" "Many places do, but I prefer British pounds." "What about a gold coin? Would you take gold? It's worth $2,500 per ounce. I'll give you 1 ounce if you can take me to your brother-in-law and get him to fly me to Antigua quietly." His interest picked up right away. "Let me see the coin. I don't accept fakes." I opened the case and showed him one of the coins. "Well, this looks real, but it's too much just to get you to my brother-in-law. I usually charge a lot, but I won't take advantage of a friend like that." "Think of it as a finder's fee. I also have another favor to ask while you take me there. We could just get a taxi and arrive much quicker than by my boat." "Yes, but more people would see me. This way it's just us." "Discretion, right? I understand." He started to give back the coin. "Keep it as a payment in advance. I trust you. The bartender speaks well of you." This made him laugh. "Let's go then. Do you have any luggage?" "Just this one case, that's all." We climbed onto an old wooden boat that looked worn. "She may not appear impressive, but I just put a new engine in her. She's strong now," he said with a chuckle. "Let's see what she can do. Time is important," I joked. He pushed the throttle all the way down, and we sped towards our destination on the other side of the island. He called his brother-in-law on his phone to explain the situation. "He says he will do it for a gold coin as well. Do you have another? He asked. Tell him if he asks no questions and has the plane ready when we arrive, I'll give him 2. 2? I wish I had a plane. I'd take you myself, he exclaimed. He called his family member and arranged the trip for me. And what was that other favor you wanted to talk about earlier? I would like you to give an anonymous tip to the police about 3 people who will have illegal drugs with them. And how do you know this information? Did you sell them the drugs, maybe? No, I didn't. They bought them locally in Montserrat and were planning to use them on me. One of them is my wife and the other is her new partner. They are out on a small boat called the Sea Chariot 2. Tell the police to wait near the pier and they will come right to the main pier soon. Advise the officers to stay hidden until the boat arrives because if they are seen, they might get rid of the drugs before coming in. Aha! Retribution! The wife plays and the wife pays! I like it! Yes, I will be happy to tell the police. Just a moment. He made the anonymous call while we were traveling and passed along the information as I described. Montserrat has very strict drug laws and the police want to catch offenders. I see you have a small duffel bag there. Yes, I keep a change of clothes in it. Can I have it? Or would you sell it to me? Take it. It's yours. It's nothing special. I have many more at home. Just leave me my clothes. He took out his clothes and I moved everything from the Pelican box into the small duffel bag. Then I tossed the open Pelican box into the ocean as far as I could. It sank right away. It had done its job well. I didn't want it to be found. By the way, I asked, the ocean depth 1.5 miles from shore is about 60 feet. Do you know how quickly it gets deeper from there? 1.5 miles out is right at the edge of the island shelf. 1.25 miles away from the island, the sea drops down sharply before it levels out near 5,000 feet deep. Why do you want to know? I asked. I'm just curious, he replied, shaking his head, careful not to ask too many questions. I was glad to discover that Christopher's boat and his precious painting were resting on the ocean floor nearly 1 mile down. As we approached the dock, I saw a seaplane with its engine running and the door open. That's him. He's a skilled pilot. He won't ask you any questions, just like you wanted, he explained. Here's another 1,000 in U.S. money. Please take it to a bank and change it to pounds. But this is too much. What do you need it for? He asked. This is to ensure you forget you ever met me. If you see my face on TV as a missing person, you know nothing. You might want to share some with your bartender friend too to help him forget me. I would really appreciate it. He talked a bit with his brother-in-law while I boarded the plane. During the short flight, he didn't say a word or even look at me. I think he was trying to ensure he wouldn't recognize me later. As I opened the door to leave, I handed him 2 gold coins as promised. We shook hands, and he was gone within moments. I was now near the V.C. Bird International Airport on the island of Antigua, which offers direct flights to the U.S. There was no record of my arrival. I quietly thanked Christopher for the cash and gold coins that helped me get this far. I hoped things would soon get interesting for 3 of them. It was a quick walk from the private airfield to the V.C. Bird International Airport. I made sure my passport was in my pocket. I took the 3 passports I had and secretly tossed them into a trash can at the airport entrance. Once inside, I showed my passport and paid cash for a ticket to the USI would have a short layover in Miami before connecting to Tampa. The cash price for the ticket was $1,200. The next flight would leave in 2 hours. During the security checks, I asked for my bag to be inspected by hand, not wanting the X-ray machines to harm my hard drives. A dog was brought in to sniff my bag, but nothing suspicious was found. I had started with $5,000 in cash. I gave the boat captain $1,000 and spent $1,200 on the ticket, leaving me with $2,800. From the 4 gold coins I had, I used 1 for the boat captain and 2 for the seaplane, leaving me with 1 coin. While waiting, I grabbed a meal at the airport restaurant. I spent the rest of my time before the flight buying souvenirs for Jenna, Amelia, and Eric. I spent a lot of Christopher's money, about $800, on gifts for the 3 people waiting back home. That left me with my original $2,000. To carry all my purchases, I had to buy a new suitcase that would fit in the plane's overhead compartment. When it was time to board, I placed the suitcase above me and put the duffel bag under my seat. I had to keep those hard drives safe. Once I arrived in Miami, I went through customs. I asked for a manual check for the hard drives, which meant they used a wand and brought in a dog to sniff my bags again. After that, I was allowed to go into the Miami terminal and wait for my flight to Tampa. I had a 45-minute wait and found a store in the airport that sold burner phones. I bought one and saved a few numbers I remembered, but didn't call anyone yet. The plane touched down in Tampa at 11 p.m., and I took a taxi to the West Shore Yacht Club Marina. My car was parked in a gated area just outside the marina. Though a special pass was needed to get in, the gate opened automatically for anyone leaving, so I had no trouble when I left for home. On the way, I made a call. A sleepy voice answered, "Good evening, Walter's residence." "Hello, Jenna? Steve, is it really you? It's been so long since we heard from you. It's late, everything okay?" "It is now, Jenna. Hearing your voice and being on my way home feels wonderful." "Home? You're coming home? I thought you'd be away for a couple of weeks." "So did I, Jenna, but life changed my plans. I'm in the car and should be home around midnight. Please don't wake the kids. I'm really tired." "Are you alone? Is Kirsty not with you?" "She decided to stay longer than I wanted to. I'll explain later, but I need some rest and may sleep a lot tomorrow. Can you help keep things quiet until I wake up?" "Of course, Steve. Whatever you need. I have a lot of questions, but I won't bother you now. I'll have your bed ready and fresh towels in your bathroom if you want a shower. Can I make you something to eat?" "I had dinner at the airport, so I'm fine, but thank you." "We've missed you a lot, Steve. I hope you know that." "I missed you too, Jenna. Thank you." When I finally opened the door to my home, I felt a sense of peace for the first time in many days. It felt true that there is no place like home. Jenna almost rushed to me as soon as she saw me. I don't think she had ever hugged me as tightly as she did that night. She kissed my cheek a few times with tears in her eyes and welcomed me home. I left the suitcase full of souvenirs in the living room and slowly went upstairs to my bedroom with my duffel bag. I really wanted to take a shower, but I just didn't have the energy. I changed into my boxers and flopped onto the bed. I think I fell asleep almost immediately. I was suddenly woken up at 9 a.m. the next morning, Friday, July 7th, at the end of the first week of my 2-week break from work. Amelia and Eric jumped onto the bed, both showering me with hugs and kisses. "We missed you, Daddy," said Amelia, and Eric repeated it. "Where's Mommy?" they asked. "I'm sorry, kids. It looks like it's just you and me for a while. Mommy is still with the Belvederes on the Caribbean island of Montserrat. I missed you all too much to stay away any longer, so I came back as soon as I could. Mommy said she needed some time away, and she wasn't ready to come home yet. I'm not sure when you'll see or talk to her again. I'm sure the Belvederes are taking good care of her while I'm gone." "I'm sorry, Steve," Jenna said. "I tried to keep them busy. The best I could do was hold them off until 9 a.m. They were so excited to see you." I laughed at her situation. "It's okay, Jenna. I actually welcome it. You three are the reason I came back early from my break. I couldn't stay away any longer. But just so you know, Daddy needs a shower. I might have to ask you to change the sheets after I'm done. There's a suitcase downstairs with some souvenirs for all three of you. Even you, Jenna. Your names are on bags inside, so help yourselves while I shower." Jenna looked back at me. "I'll open mine later if it's all right, Steve. I'm going to change your sheets while you shower, and then I'll make us a hot breakfast. Come downstairs when you're finished, and we'll be ready for you. Don't worry, I won't let them start without you," she teased. It felt wonderful to be back home with these three special people. My nose led me downstairs where I was greeted with big smiles. "We love the gifts, Daddy," they both said. "We enjoyed a fantastic home-cooked breakfast that was the best I could ask for." "When do you plan to go back to work, Steve?" Jenna asked. "Well, I was planning to take 2 weeks off, so I'll be home this week and next week before I return." 2 weeks? Kirsty told me that she and my wife might be away for a whole month. We were asked not to mention it to you because it was meant to be a surprise. "I know she might be gone that long, but I'd rather be here with you all," I replied. Jenna looked confused, but dropped the topic in front of the kids. She could sense something was off, but I wasn't ready to talk about it. She was very perceptive. "Even though I won't be at work during this break, I have some important things to handle before I can go back. I want to spend as much time with you all as possible. Jenna and I will compare our schedules later and try to make it work for everyone." This seemed to make everyone feel better. After breakfast, I checked in with Stargen Pharmaceutical and let them know I would return to work after my original 2 weeks off. I told them the extra 2 weeks my wife wanted were no longer needed. Then I called Ross Gertzke. "Hey Ross, it's Steve Walters." "Well, if it isn't Captain Ahab, how's your vacation going?" he joked. "That's what I wanted to talk about, Ross. My wife, Kirsty, made a mistake with our vacation plans. I won't need those extra 2 weeks after all. I'm really sorry she called you about covering for me. I'll just be taking the 2 weeks I initially asked for." "Are you sure, Steve?" "I know I owe you a lot, and I want to help you and your family in any way I can." "Don't worry about it, Ross. Like I said, she made a big mistake. Just take care of your family." "Thanks, Steve. You too. See you when you're back at work." With my work sorted out, I focused on another important matter. Stargen Pharmaceutical provides legal help as part of my job. I called and scheduled a 2 p.m. meeting with one of the legal team members. Geraldine Markham, a friendly redhead, gave me information about divorce laws in Florida. She explained that in Florida you can't be legally separated. You either file for divorce or you don't. The state is a no-fault area, so most cases say the marriage is beyond repair. Once served, the other person has 20 days to respond. Issues like custody, child support, and financial matters can make the divorce process complicated. She said she would be glad to help me, but it would be best to serve Kirsty when she gets back to the country. Legal matters can be tricky across borders. When I asked, she assured me that as my lawyer, she had to keep everything confidential, even from her spouse. No one at Stargen would know the details of my divorce unless I chose to share them. She did mention that in Florida, cheating can affect who gets custody of the kids. She asked if I had any proof. I laughed and told her that proving cheating would be easy, but I didn't share any specific details during our first meeting. One good thing about Stargen is that they offer a 60% discount on legal services, which was helpful. That afternoon, Geraldine became my attorney. My next question caught her off guard. "If American citizens do something wrong to me in another country, can I sue them for money if I can prove it?" "Well, Steve, my main work is in divorce, real estate, and small claims. Frank Stratton is our trial lawyer. He could help you with that, but I can give you some general advice. If another American does something wrong to you in a foreign country, they can be charged here as if it happened in the U.S. It's best to wait until the district attorney has dealt with them before suing. You can sue even if they haven't been convicted, but it might cost more and be harder to win." "Thanks, Geraldine. How can I set up a meeting with Mr. Stratton?" "Let me check his schedule. All our lawyers share a corporate calendar for this kind of thing. Let's see. Frank is in a trial, but it should end by this coming Tuesday. Would you like me to put you down for Wednesday morning?" "That sounds good, Geraldine. How about 10 a.m.? "Perfect. Frank is excellent at what he does. We're lucky to have him. I promise he will take care of you. In the meantime, I'll start your paperwork to notify your wife about the terms when she comes back to address your divorce." "Great. Thank you, Geraldine. One more question if you don't mind." "Of course, Steve. Do you have a good private investigator you can recommend who is also very discreet?" "My goodness, you seem to be quite busy, don't you?" she asked with interest. "Unfortunately, I am. I need someone who can find out where my wife is and what she's up to. It's important for my legal matters." "Yes, we do have someone, Steve. I've used them mostly for situations like yours, and they're very competent. Unfortunately, your discount doesn't apply if you hire them directly. But if I or Frank hire them for you, then it will be part of our billing and your discount will apply. Here's their card. It's Carling Investigations. Ask for Brant Carling and tell him I referred you." "Thank you, Geraldine. You've been really helpful. I now have a lawyer starting my divorce. I have an appointment next Tuesday to meet with a civil attorney, and I got a recommendation for a good private investigator. I thought I had gathered enough information for one day, but I wanted to talk to the investigator before I wrapped up. So I drove straight to their office. Mr. Carling will see you now, Mr. Walters. Thank you for waiting. Our agents often spend a lot of time with clients." "Please come in, Mr. Walters. I'm Brant Carling. How can I assist you today?" "Please call me Steve. I just want to say that Geraldine Markham recommended you highly. I'm in a tough situation. I believe my wife, Kirsty Walters, might be in jail on the island of Montserrat with some others on drug charges. Geraldine is helping me with my divorce from Kirsty, so it would really help to know where she is, how long she might be there, and when she could come back home." He wrote down most of what I said. "I understand, Steve. Is there a reason you can't make these calls yourself and save some money?" "To put it simply, Brant, They don't know if I'm alive or not, and I prefer to keep it that way for personal reasons. But if you could find out their situation, whether they are facing any charges, and importantly, when they might be able to get new passports to come home, it would really help me. I don't need any active watching. I have clear evidence regarding other issues. Is this something you can do? Yes, of course. You want your name kept out of any inquiries and don't want anyone to know about your current situation? Exactly. For personal reasons, I'd like to use your services with this initial deposit. I handed him the last gold coin. Gold is worth a lot right now, over $2,500 an ounce. You could sell this coin for about $2,600 right now, or hold on to it for more value. Do we have a deal? He examined the coin closely, smiled, and held out his hand. Yes, Steve. This is unusual, but I'll accept this to get us started. Great. Thank you. Like I said, if you could keep me updated at this number I'm giving you, I would really appreciate it. If your charges go above the $2,500 value, let me know and I'll pay you the extra. Sounds good, Steve. I should have some information in a couple of hours. Also, thank Geraldine for the recommendation. She'll take care of you. She's a determined person. I felt a wave of relief to have started the legal process for divorce from Kirsty, and I was very anxious to learn what was happening with the three involved. Do they think I'm kidnapped or dead? Do they think the sailboat and painting were taken? Did anyone notice the sinking, or was it reported? Were they being held on drug charges? Had they arranged for new passports and a way back home? All these questions swirled in my mind. I got home by dinner time that Friday evening. Jenna had made a big meal of all my favorite foods. She must believe that cooking is the way to make someone happy. Later, while Jenna cleaned up the kitchen, my new phone rang. Hello, Steve? This is he? Hi, this is Brant Carling. I have some news for you about your wife and the Belvederes, if you have a moment. Sure, go ahead. I contacted the local authorities in Montserrat as you suggested. I told them I might be their legal representative and they emailed me a copy of the police report. Great. What does it say? It mentions that an anonymous tip from a local person caught their attention. The Belvederes and your wife arrived at the dock in about 45 minutes. They were checked with a dog who found drugs in their belongings, just as it was said. The report states that your wife was very upset and kept saying she thought her husband might be dead. The police were confused until the Belvederes explained that their sailboat was missing and you were on it. They believed it had been stolen. Christopher asked the police to search for it, saying you might be an innocent victim. He said the boat was worth a lot and had important art inside. The police focused only on the drugs at that time. The three of them were taken in for questioning and charged with having illegal substances. Each person had a different type, maybe so no one would face multiple charges. They were booked and kept overnight. Because there were many cases, the magistrate wouldn't be available until today. It seems Kirsty was very upset. Is that all you have for now? Yes, sir. I'm afraid the results of their meeting with the magistrate today haven't been made public yet, so we don't know how long they may be held or what will happen next. It might be next week before we get more information. I'm happy with what you've found so far, Brant. At least I can relax a bit this weekend. Thank you very much. Let me know if you hear anything else. I will, Steve. I'll keep looking into this for you. Have a good weekend. I felt much better knowing that their troubles with the drugs were stopping them from dealing with the boat or searching for me. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. It felt good to think that Kirsty might be sad about what happened to me. After all, she had put me through a lot of emotional pain. A smile crept onto my face. Since I hadn't spent much time with the kids that day, I decided we should go to the movies to watch a new kid-friendly film. We had a great time. I had a special girl on either side of me while Eric chose to sit with Jenna instead of his sister. Once we got home, we had the kids take their showers in separate bathrooms at the same time, and then we got them to bed at the usual Friday night hour. After I was sure Amelia and Eric were sound asleep, I found Jenna waiting to talk with me. All right, Steve. I held back my questions like you asked, but I can tell something is wrong, and I think it has to do with Kirsty. I won't push you to say anything you don't want to share, but you know I care about you. I couldn't love you any more than I do. But since you're being vague, let me guess. Is there something going on with Mr. Belvedere? Is that why she stayed there instead of coming back with you? Is that why you cut your vacation short? I looked into her eyes. I was surprised by how much she understood and how much she cared about my well-being. What makes you think that? I notice small things, Steve, like how you're not wearing your wedding ring. I've always seen you with it until now. Wow, you're a smart girl. I love you too, Jenna, and I don't mean to keep you in the dark. You've always been able to read me better than anyone else. If I tell you everything that has happened, it might change how you feel about Kirsty. Are you sure you want to hear it before hearing her side of the story? You're avoiding the topic, Steve. Let me say this from my heart. If you and Kirsty ever share something and your stories don't match, I will always stand by you without question. I have never met anyone as honest as you. If you tell me something, I will believe it completely. So, was I close? Close? You're exactly right. I can't compete with what the Belvederes offered her. They turned her against me. Kirsty has betrayed our marriage in a way that can't be fixed. I met with a lawyer today and plan to get a divorce as soon as I can. Plus, what they did against me is serious. I think they could face some real consequences, but for now, I'm just glad to be home with you and away from them. Whenever they come back, it will hit me hard. If things are not done just right, it could be a tough time to get through. If I say more, I worry you might get caught up in it, and I can't let that happen. I want to keep you and the kids safe. She rushed to me, knelt down in front of me, and held my hands. You silly man. You don't see how much I care about you. I'm 26 and still here as your helper. I love Amelia and Eric as if they were my own, but the main reason I've stayed is to be close to you. When was the last time you saw me go on a date? Sure, I went out a bit when I was younger, but those guys didn't mean much. None of them come close to you. I never said any of this before because I didn't want to disrespect your marriage to Kirsty. But now that she has let you down, I feel I can share my feelings. My heart wants you, Steve. It always has. What you tell me will stay with me. I will take your secrets to my grave. Unlike Kirsty, I have always been loyal to you. You can count on me and I'd do anything to protect you. I've always cared for Jenna since she joined our family, but I've always seen her like a sister. I never thought of her in any other way. But now, my feelings for her seem different, seeing her in a new light filled with years of love. I don't know what will happen between us, but I really believe I can trust her. Jenna, you know I care about you too. You can be part of this family for as long as you want. Right now, I can't promise more than that because I'll be busy dealing with them when the time comes. But it's good to know you're on my side and will stand by me in hard times. She kissed my cheek, tears rolling down her face. They were clearly tears of love. Sweet Jenna, I've never lied to you, and I don't want to start now. If anything does happen between us in the future, I don't want it to be spoiled by lies. Since we first met, you've always been someone I can truly trust. I've trusted you with Amelia and Eric, who mean so much to me. My hesitation to share everything isn't because I don't trust you. It's to keep you safe. If you ever find yourself caught up in something and are asked questions, please always tell the truth. I will never put you in a position where you feel you need to lie for me. But I promise you, once all the legal matters are settled, I will tell you everything that has happened and what is currently going on. I won't keep anything from you. I won't ask for more details until you're ready, Steve, but there's one condition. What's that? Stop paying me. Not a single cent more. With Kirsty not working and you facing big legal fees, this is my way of helping. I will still do everything I've always done, but I won't accept payment. This is not up for discussion. I insist. Understand? Understood, I agreed. We hugged and went to bed that night, realizing that new possibilities were opening up that I had never thought about before. Before sleeping, I looked at the 2 hard drives I had taken from the sailboat's recorder. I needed to find a way to access the recordings. Saturday and Sunday were family days. The 4 of us spent 2 days at Tampa's Busch Gardens. I had never enjoyed such a wonderful time with my family. It seemed like the kids picked up on Jenna's cues and didn't ask about their mother anymore. I realized Kirsty hadn't contacted them at all since we left to sail, while I had called them 3 times. On Monday morning, I took one of the hard drives with me to a local computer store. They knew exactly what I needed and showed me where to find powered adapters for external hard drives with USB and FireWire connections. I found one that fit my hard drive and bought it. At home, I easily set it up to connect to my desktop PC. Unlike many people, I prefer a desktop over a laptop. Accessing the hard drives wasn't the issue. It was viewing the files that proved difficult. All the recorded files had a special file type I'd never seen before. A quick internet search showed limited options. I needed to buy special video editing software that could handle a variety of file types, including the unique files on my hard drives. After purchasing it, I downloaded the program and saved a copy on a DVD just in case. Though it wasn't cheap, it was worth it. What I found was surprising. I learned there were 7 other cameras placed around the cabin areas of the sailboat. Only one camera covered the deck, aimed at the forward tanning area. The recorded files were labeled by camera number, and it seemed the cameras were motion sensitive because the folders for the unused rooms were empty. Luckily, there wasn't a camera in the engine room. If there had been, Christopher could have seen me take the hacksaw from there. What scared me the most was that I tried to hide the saw in case someone walked in while I was putting it away. Fortunately, the camera showed me from behind, making it seem like I was just grabbing paper towels when really, I was hiding the saw. Someone must have been watching over me. 2 cameras filmed their precious painting from different angles. I urgently wanted to check the recordings from the kitchen, the common room, the Belvedere's room, and my room with Kirsty, which made 5 cameras in total, as 2 were pointed at the common area. I asked Jenna to take the kids out again today so I could start looking at the recordings. I needed information for my divorce hearing and for a civil case I planned to file against the Belvederes after their trial, if there was one. Wealthy people often find ways to escape trouble. I spent the whole day and into the night until 2 a.m. scanning the 5 camera recordings for important details. It was tough to watch Kirsty's influences as she had more wine than usual, which affected her behavior. It felt like she was being played, and I couldn't stand it. What really hurt me was a private conversation between Christopher and Laureen that I was not supposed to see. I had to think hard about the best way to use these recordings. If people found out that I had the hard drives from the sailboat, it would ruin my plan and my chance for justice. I had already cost the Belvederes a $10 million sailboat and their $40 million painting. Even though that amount might not mean much to them, I didn't want it to be known. I still needed to come up with a smarter plan. I looked at the second hard drive and discovered it was just a copy of the main one, which kept everything safe. I used my software to convert the selected videos into standard MP4 files. This changed the quality from a high 8K down to 1080p, making the files smaller but still suitable for what I needed. I copied the chosen MP4 files onto 2 external hard drives I bought with cash at a discount store. I also got a fingerprint safe for the hard drives. After checking the new copies, I drilled holes into the source drives and smashed them with a hammer, putting the pieces into a plastic bag, which I tossed into a nearby dumpster. At my first chance, I met with Geraldine, my divorce lawyer. Thanks for seeing me on such short notice, Geraldine. I promise to keep it brief. I have a busy day, Steve. What do you need? I have a small safe that opens only with my fingerprint. Inside is a hard drive with evidence of my wife's dishonesty. I hope I won't need it, but I want to keep it safe. It's the only copy I have. If my wife were to break in and take it, she might not want to cooperate with the divorce. I was wondering if you could help find a secure place for it. She reached out to take the safe. Yes, there's a secure safe here that we use for important documents. I can keep it in my office. Just let me know if you need it back. Great. Thank you. I hope it stays secure in the meantime. On my way home that evening, I sent out a package. Jenna was thinking hard about her life. She was deeply hurt to learn about Kirsty's betrayal. A divorce seemed unavoidable. There was nothing Kirsty could do to change that. It broke her heart to see the pain in Steve's eyes caused by Kirsty's actions. Steve would need all the love and support she could give, and she wanted him to know she wouldn't let him down like Kirsty had. She thought about how to help him as he faced his legal troubles. Jenna cooked his favorite meals every night and planned family movie nights, sitting close to him and cheering him on. She also improved her look, getting her hair styled and wearing simple makeup and nice clothes to feel more appealing to him. Jenna complimented him often and spoke to him gently to help rebuild his confidence after everything he had been through. These were the things she had decided to do for him, and she was committed to doing them all the time. Christopher, Laureen, and Kirsty were in serious trouble with the authorities in Montserrat. They had all been arrested for drug-related charges. Christopher was furious about the betrayal. He learned that a local resident had reported them to the police. The only local he could think of was the man he had trusted to sell him the drugs in the first place. It didn't add up, and he was even more puzzled about where Steve and the sailboat were. They looked through a large area where he was sure the boat had been left, but it was nowhere to be found. They had left Steve alone and tied up. Had pirates taken the boat and their important painting? Had they harmed Steve and discarded him in the ocean? Was he kidnapped for ransom, or had he managed to escape and sail away? Their passports were on the boat. Without those or the boat, returning to the U.S. was impossible, even without the added issues of the drug charges. He had many questions and no answers. Everything about this July vacation had gone wrong, and he felt stuck without any options. "Hello, is this Mr. Walters? Mr. Steve Walters?" "Yes, this is he. How can I help you?" "My name is Kent Morgan. I'm the district attorney for Hillsborough County, which includes Tampa." "I've heard of you, sir. I can't remember if I voted for you or not," I said with a small laugh. "The reason for my call is about a case I'm working on. Could you come by my office at the courthouse this afternoon? Your help would be appreciated." "What's this about, if you don't mind me asking?" "I think you already know, Mr. Walters. I'd like you to come in and confirm some details." "I can be there around 5:30 this afternoon. Will that work?" "I'll be waiting for you. 3rd floor, room 302. The door will be open." I had a feeling I knew what it was about, and I felt nervous. I shouldn't be worried, but this was a big deal for someone like me. I arrived on time and found his office. We shook hands, and he offered me a drink. I chose soda while he had scotch. "Thanks for meeting me, Mr. Walters. Please, call me Steve." "I like the casualness, Steve. Call me Kent." A little while back, my office received an anonymous package. Inside was an external hard drive and a letter. The letter has been checked. It was printed in standard block letters and then copied. We have no way of knowing who sent it. There are no fingerprints or identifying details. Let me read it to you. It says, "To District Attorney Kent Morgan, a long time ago, Tampa residents Christopher and Lorene Belvedere hurt my family and ended my marriage. After my divorce, I promised to find a way to make them pay for what they did. It took many years to reach this point. I discovered a cloud account that Christopher Belvedere uses to store videos from his sailboat. I downloaded the contents of that storage and have copied the highlights of their recent activities, hoping to lead to criminal charges against the Belvederes. Their latest targets are Steve and Kirsty Walters, who also live in Tampa. I suspect they may be facing a divorce too. I will keep an eye on the news. We should not let the very wealthy harm others without facing any consequences. Sincerely, a friend of the court." Steve, after hearing what I just read, do you know what is on the video recordings on that external hard drive? "Yes, Kent. I have a good idea since I went through it. From what I've seen, you are the victim of several serious crimes. The recordings clearly show what happened. Before I take any action, I need your confirmation. I have a statement that outlines every charge I want to file against the 3 people involved, including your wife. Please read it carefully, and if it is correct, I need you to sign it to support your complaint. I can only use this evidence if you agree. If they had harmed you fatally, I could have used it after your passing. Since you are alive, I need your support. Will you help me hold them accountable, Steve? We are talking about serious consequences." As I revisited the details of my abductions, attacks, conspiracies, and the distress I suffered, pain resurfaced in my mind. I found myself tearing up, and I quickly wiped my face. After finishing, I wanted to clarify a few things. "Kent, I can confidently say that this statement is accurate, and I will gladly testify under 2 conditions. You've watched too many crime shows, Steve. I'm the DA, not you. I make deals here, but I'm open to hearing you out. My first condition is that I want to testify without using the video evidence. Let me share what they did to me first, and then allow for cross-examination. I want them to think there is no video, just my word against theirs." "Why would you want that?" "Because my wife can choose not to testify against me due to spousal privilege. If she does invoke that, then I want to set a second condition." "And what is that?" "I want the court records to be sealed. If she tries to protect me even a little, I don't want our children to see any public records related to her private matters when they grow up. I want to honor the mother she has been to them so far." "I understand. And if she decides to support the Belvederes and testifies against you, saying you are lying, believing it will be your word against theirs, then I don't want the court record sealed. Let her fade away in their eyes. What if she decides to tell everything against the Belvederes and supports you completely? Then the same thing. Keep it private. Make her an offer if you want, but she should get at least 10 years. Why 10 years? My son is 8. In 10 years he will be an adult and there won't be any issues over custody in our divorce. Smart man, but maybe not smart enough. I could use the video evidence against the Belvederes right away and then call you to testify. You wouldn't have a choice but to support the proof. Yes, you could do that. And I could go on the stand and say it was just acting and a joke. You would let them go free? I want them to face consequences, Kent. But I need Kirsty to show her loyalty to the Belvederes through her words in court. The kids should understand that she brought this on herself and that I didn't misuse the justice system against her. How they see things later matters to me. I need her to decide her path. If I keep the video evidence from the defense like you suggest, they will claim they had the right to know about it before the trial. They might suggest a deal knowing about the video beforehand. A deal? You don't have to let them lessen their charges. That's what they want. Let them lie. You can add an extra 5 years when they do. When they give false testimony, you can then show the video as proof against their lies, strengthening your case and adding to their sentences. It is different, but I think it can work like that. The judge will be upset with me for a while for this trick, but it is still legal. All right, Steve. I will agree to your 2 conditions, but you must promise to be a great witness when you testify. Consider them guilty, I said firmly. On Wednesday, after being held for trial by the judge the previous Monday, Christopher was finally allowed to make one phone call. They had taken all his personal things and provided him with an orange jumpsuit to wear while he was in custody. He had to remember a number. He was used to speed dialing from his now unreachable phone. The only number he could recall clearly was Ingrid's, his personal trainer. He told her his attorney's name and where to find him, briefly explained his situation, and urgently asked her to act quickly. The attorney flew in and arrived the very next day, getting to see the Belvederes. Christopher gave him full permission to do what was necessary to get all 3 of them released as soon as possible. Though he had to grease some wheels, the Montserrat penal system was slow. Hearings had to be scheduled, deals agreed upon, papers signed, and orders issued. 2 weeks after their arrest, they were allowed to leave due to a guilty plea for possession. They received a 5-year ban from the island, but their sentences were reduced to time served. During this waiting period, their attorney contacted the U.S. Embassy in nearby Barbados to request new passports. This process also took 2 weeks, and no amount of money could speed it up. While dealing with legal matters, Christopher hired a private investigator to look into the disappearance of Steve Walters, their sailboat, and a painting that was very valuable to them. The investigator brought his whole team to search for any clues. Christopher believed that Steve did not know how to sail to any destination and suspected that other people might have been involved in the situation. He was not hopeful about the outcome. The investigators' team worked with local authorities to ask if any unidentified bodies had washed up on the beach, but there had been none for over a month. They paid to have Steve's photo and information shown on the main island TV station, calling him a missing person and offering a reward for useful tips, but it did not lead to anything. The local airport had no records of Steve traveling to nearby islands, and they did not have any direct flights to the U.S. The team even checked airport security video in case he had used a different identity. They also talked to every charter boat operator on the island, but no one had seen him. If Steve did not arrive on the island and his body was not found, the options seemed limited. They sent alerts to every port asking if anyone had seen the sailboat, but there were still no leads. Kirsty began to worry that her husband had been kidnapped for ransom or, at worst, was dead. The uncertainty was driving her to despair. The investigators found no signs of fuel or any materials from the boat washed ashore, and with no witnesses, they had no evidence to suggest the sailboat had sunk. When they contacted the maritime authorities, they could not track any signals from the sailboat. The last known signal showed where it had been anchored earlier. They noted that pirates often disable identification signals. Kirsty felt devastated, believing her husband might have been taken or harmed. The not knowing was deeply distressing for her. The insurance company that covered the boat was waiting to see if it showed up anywhere, either taken apart or registered again for signs of theft. They often found abandoned boats that had been emptied of everything valuable, leaving only the empty frames. The insurance for the painting was also waiting to check on the sailboat's condition before deciding if the painting was truly stolen or lost, hoping it might appear on the black market somewhere. Their search spread worldwide, except for private collectors who would need to hide the painting. Kirsty and the Belvederes got out of jail in Montserrat on Thursday, 2 weeks after they were arrested. Their passports would not be ready at the embassy until the following Monday. They were told not to leave their hotel rooms until the passports arrived, or they might be arrested again. Christopher had a high-performance laptop sent to him and used it to access backup cloud recordings from the boat. He waited until he was released, because he didn't want anyone else, not even his lawyer, to see the raw footage, since it was very sensitive. The girls gathered around the laptop screen as he clicked through many options to find the last video taken after they left the island. They revisited their final conversations with Steve before leaving him behind. All three of them felt a sense of regret about their last words and actions toward him. Kirsty felt particularly embarrassed, remembering what she had said and done. After they left, they watched the footage closely, not wanting to miss anything. The only sound was the TV loudly playing a recording of Kirsty and Christopher. Eventually, they saw Steve using his free arm to scratch his back while he stood still, looking away from the screen, not interested in what was happening. Christopher increased the volume, hoping to catch some other noise over the loud sounds coming from the recording. Then something surprising occurred. The three of them leaned closer to the screen when they heard some unclear thumping noises that were not part of the recording. It almost sounded like footsteps coming onto the boat or moving toward the cabin area where Steve was. Their suspicions were confirmed when they saw Steve lean forward, looking toward the entrance. He called out, "Kirsty? Christopher? Lorene? Is that you? Did you come back for something?" Someone was on the boat and heading toward the main area. Steve suddenly looked shocked as he stared at the entrance from the upper deck and said, "Who are you? What do you want?" All three of them held their breath. They were about to find out what was happening. Just then, the video stopped. There was no more footage to see. This worried them because it made them think that someone, maybe pirates, had come aboard and found Steve. What happened next? They had no answers, only more questions. They watched that part 3 times, but nothing changed. There was no clue to what happened except that the boat was likely taken. No other information was available. Once she calmed down, Kirsty realized this was her chance to use a phone. "Hello, Jenna. This is Kirsty," she said through her tears. "How are Amelia and Eric? Can I talk to them?" "Oh, hi, Kirsty. The kids are fine, but they are at a birthday party at an amusement park. I won't pick them up for a bit. You sound upset. Is everything okay?" "I'm just so glad to hear your voice. But I have some bad news, Jenna. Steve is missing. He stayed on the boat while I went to the island with the Belvederes. The sailboat has disappeared with him on it. Has anyone asked for a ransom for him? You can tell me even if the police are involved." "Oh, no! You say the sailboat and Steve are missing? That's awful. No, I haven't heard anything about a ransom and I haven't spoken to the police. Do you want me to tell the kids?" "Oh, no, please, Jenna, don't say anything to them. It might be nothing, but until we find him, I can't stop worrying." "I'm so sorry you're dealing with this, Kirsty. At least you are safe. If I hear anything from the authorities, how can I reach you? This number is new to me. Should I call your regular cell phone?" "I can't do that. I left my cell phone on the boat. This number is for the hotel we're staying at in Montserrat. I've tried calling Steve's phone so many times, but it just goes to voicemail. I don't mean to worry you more, Jenna. I hope we get some answers soon. Our new passports will be ready on Monday at the embassy, so we will pick them up and fly back to Tampa then. I'll call you with our arrival details, so you can pick me up when we land. I won't have any luggage." "I'm excited to see you and the kids," she said honestly. "I understand. I'll wait for your call on Monday with the details." Jenna felt proud of herself. She hadn't told a single lie or betrayed Steve. But deep down, she knew she would rather lie than let Steve down. She quickly told him about Kirsty's call. Soon after Jenna's chat with my wife, my phone rang again. "Hello, Steve. This is Brant Carling. I have more news for you." Great. What's the latest? I received a copy of the update on their drug case in Montserrat. You were right. Mr. Belvedere used his influence to lessen their punishment. They all signed a plea agreement, admitting guilt to drug possession in exchange for just 2 weeks in prison and a 5-year ban from the island, pretty light punishment. Only very wealthy people can get away with this. That's the information I needed, Brandt. Can you send me a clear copy of that document? I need it today. You can take my original, Steve. I will make a copy for our files just in case something happens to yours. Perfect. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I took the rest of the afternoon off work and went straight to see Geraldine with the document. Yes, Steve. This should work, at least for a little while, she said. How long do you think it will last? The thing about temporary restraining orders is that they're not permanent. Your wife's recent guilty plea about drugs would give any husband cause for concern about her role in your children's lives. However, one mistake doesn't mean she should be kept away forever. Judges are often hesitant to separate children from their mothers unless there's serious abuse. I've dealt with cases like this before. I'll aim for a 3-month order, but we might end up with just 6 weeks. That will give you some peace for a while. The order will protect you, your job, and the kids at school. That's the best I can do given the situation. Would it help if you mentioned that I'm filing for divorce because of her unfaithfulness? Judges in Florida consider infidelity during custody decisions, but it hasn't been established legally yet. I can mention that you'll be able to prove it when your case comes up to see if they will extend the order. Thanks, Geraldine. I just want to keep her away until their trial date. I really appreciate all your help. By the way, Jenna said Kirsty will fly into Tampa on Monday. I'll let you know her arrival time once we find out. Can you be ready to give her the divorce papers as she walks in and the restraining order at the same time? That's what we do, Steve. We'll be set to go first thing. I'll have someone ready. What do you think she'll do when she finds out you're alive and she can't go back where she was? She'll be angry that I didn't tell her I was okay, but I don't mind. She won't be in trouble financially. The Belvederes will help her out. They have a big house. The next Monday morning, the new passports arrived at the U.S. Embassy in Barbados and were picked up right away. With the passports ready, the group could finally book their flights back to Tampa. They had a short stop in Miami before the final flight to Tampa. Kirsty had told Jenna they would arrive at 2:15 p.m. so Jenna could pick her up. The Belvederes had set up a different ride home. Kirsty felt frustrated with them since she had followed their advice, and now her husband was missing. As she walked off the plane into the terminal, she saw a cheerful-looking college student holding a picture of her. Are you Kirsty Walters? Yes, I am. Did Jenna send you? No, ma'am. Miss Walters, you have been served, she said flatly while handing over a manila envelope. I have another for you. This is a temporary restraining order stopping you from coming within 500 feet of Amelia Walters, Eric Walters, and Steve Walters. This includes your old home, your husband's workplace, and the children's schools. Do you understand? What? My husband is alive? Is Steve alive? Is he? Kirsty asked urgently. I'm not allowed to answer that, Miss Walters. Do you understand the restraining order I just explained to you? Kirsty nodded in a daze. I need to hear you say it, Miss Walters. Do you understand and agree to the restraining order as I have explained it? Yes, I understand, she said in shock. Thank you. This service has been recorded for proof. The server then walked away. When Christopher and Lorene saw Kirsty start to sway, they rushed to her. He caught her in his arms just before she fell. Unable to speak, she handed him the papers. Eager to find out more about Steve, Christopher read the forms again and again. Kirsty recognized that it was clearly her husband's signature on the divorce papers dated 3 days earlier. That meant that Steve was not only alive, but had been at home long enough to prepare the divorce and restraining order. This suggested he had his passport sorted to return to the U.S. They were confused by this news. Steve was going through with the divorce from Kirsty just as he said he would. The protection order lasted for 7 weeks until a meeting was set to see if it would continue or end. What hurt her most was that this order meant she could not talk to her family. She cried loudly as this sank in. Part of her felt relief that Steve was alive, but she was also very upset that he was divorcing her and keeping the kids away for the next 7 weeks. That felt so unfair to her. While Christopher offered for Kirsty to stay with them until everything was sorted out, 4 people approached them. 3 were police officers and 1 was in a suit. Without any ceremony, they placed handcuffs on them, stated the charges, and read their rights. A surprised Christopher told the girls to stay quiet. Their lawyer would help them. As expected, the lawyer arranged for their release on bail within an hour and a half. Money talks. The Belvederes took Kirsty to their big house and made sure she had everything she needed. Christopher guessed that Steve must be in Tampa. With Steve's location known, Christopher made some calls to figure out what was happening. Now that Steve was found, where was their Sea Chariot sailboat? More importantly, where was their favorite painting? Only one person had the answers, and Christopher was determined to find out. Later that evening, after dinner, someone rang the doorbell at the Walters house. Jenna usually went to the door, but Steve had warned her not to answer until further notice. 2 well-dressed men stood on the porch. "Are you Steve Walters?" one asked. "Yes, I am. What do you need from me?" Steve replied. "We need you to come with us. Your name has come up in an investigation about a recent sailboat trip." "Are you with the police?" Steve asked. They exchanged glances but did not answer. "I'm sorry, but we need you to come with us now," one said, reaching for his arm. Steve quickly pulled back. "You are not from the police. If you were, you'd have shown your ID. You can't take me anywhere. If you try to force me, my family will call the police, and my video doorbell has recorded your faces. Your actions could lead to serious trouble. I have nothing else to say," he finished, closing the door firmly. The men stood there surprised, trying to decide what to do. Realizing Steve meant what he said, they left without him. Steve thought they must be working for Christopher. "Christopher will just have to wait until I feel it's a good time to talk." 2 days later, Geraldine called. "Jenna can come, Steve, but you and your kids cannot." "Come where?" "Kirsty is following the right steps to pick up her clothes and toiletries. She has the right to her things, but she must not break the restraining order. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'll let her into your house and make sure she follows the rules. A police officer will be there as well as a normal practice. Can you drop off a spare key at my office before you leave work today?" "I will do that, Geraldine. Thanks for your support. Tomorrow is Saturday, and Jenna and I plan to be out before 10 and won't return until that evening. We'll enjoy the day. I expect her to be done before noon. I have plans for tomorrow too, you know." "I totally understand. Don't forget to add that to my bill." "I won't forget," she laughed. Geraldine called me at 1 p.m. the next day while the 4 of us were out enjoying a game of golf. She finally left. It took longer than I expected. She was upset the whole time. I kept her away from the kids' rooms or she would have been in there all day. I can see how hard that would be for her, being near her family but not able to connect. She asked me many times how you got off the boat and back to the U.S. and if I knew where that boat was. I told her I'm your divorce attorney and only represent you regarding that. That sounds like the Belvedere's influence. I think they put her up to those questions, even if she's just curious. You're likely right. Speaking of the Belvederes, they brought her to your home and insisted on helping her pack. I had to ask the police officer to keep them outside until Kirsty finished. They seemed eager to get inside, as if they were looking for something in particular. Geraldine, I can honestly say that whatever they wanted is not in my home. Thank you for keeping my house safe. Of course, Steve. It's part of my personal service, she chuckled. I stayed close to her. She only took what I believed was hers. That's fine with me. I don't need her things reminding me of her. I say good riddance. The following Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., I got a call at work from a very upset Jenna. Steve, I'm scared and don't know what to do, she cried. What's happening, Jenna? Are you and the kids safe? Yes, we're okay for now. A group of people saying they are from the FBI is here. They gave me some papers saying they have a search warrant. I read it and it says they can search the whole house, every room. They are making a mess and turning drawers upside down. The house is a disaster, Steve. What should I do? All right, Jenna. Please give me the name and contact number on the search warrant so I can look into it. Then take the kids and don't come back until I call you. Use my credit card to keep busy today, okay? Sure, Steve, I understand. Thank you. She gave me the information I needed before leaving the house as I asked. I called to confirm the search warrant was real. It was valid. They were looking into a report of a missing sailboat worth $10 million and a painting that was worth $40 million. I think they really wanted that painting, but they could search anywhere for clues about the sailboat. I figured they would likely take my computer and documents as evidence. Luckily, I was certain they would find nothing. I had already changed the hard drive on my PC and restored it from a backup I made before Kirsty and I went on our trip. The old hard drive had ended up in the same situation as the two from the boat. I did have the disk at home with the downloaded software, but it was completely legitimate. There were no traces left for them to discover. I called Jenna on my way home and asked her to grab some takeout for dinner for us tonight and that I would meet them at the house. I got home just before they did. The house was a complete mess. It looked as if a strong storm had blown through and turned everything upside down. No room was untouched, not even the children's rooms. I felt bad about what had happened in our home. After we ate, surprisingly, the kids were really strong, and all four of us pitched in to clean up most of the house. We started with the kids' rooms and worked our way out. I wondered what would happen next now that the search was over. I found out soon. On Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m., my boss called me to his office. "Steve, these gentlemen are from the FBI and are working on an investigation. They believe you might have some information that could help them. Everything is fine here. I've told them you can go with them for as long as they need. I hope you can assist." "Thank you, Harlan. Before I leave with them, could you do me a favor?" "Of course, Steve. What do you need?" "Could you please call our in-house lawyer, Frank Stratton, and ask him to meet me at the location they're taking me?" "Sure thing, Steve. I have their card." "Is this the address you're taking him to?" they asked. They nodded in agreement. Once we were outside, they invited me to ride with them. I explained that I didn't plan to stay with them long and would follow them separately unless I was being arrested. They agreed, though hesitantly. After we parked at the downtown facility, I was taken through a long series of hallways and many holding rooms before finally reaching an interview room to answer questions. They seemed to be trying to make me feel uneasy about the situation. They offered me drinks. I chose soda. "I believe you know why you are here, Mr. Walters. I am Agent Gregson, and this is Agent Carruthers." "I have no idea, gentlemen. Could you explain?" "Sure. We have been informed that you and your wife recently visited Christopher and Laureen Belvedere on their sailboat in the Caribbean. Is that correct?" "Yes, that is correct." "Was your wife with the Belvederes at the pier on Montserrat on the night of July 6th while you stayed on the sailboat?" "Yes, that is also true." At that moment, Frank Stratton came into the room. He handed both agents his card and spoke to them. "Good morning. I am Frank Stratton, Mr. Walters' lawyer. Is my client under arrest?" Agent Gregson replied, "Not right now, Mr. Stratton, but that might change. We're looking into the theft of a $10 million sailboat and a $40 million painting. We believe your client may be the only important witness who can help us understand what happened. I understand you have a job to do, but I have mine as well. Unless my client is under arrest, he won't answer any more questions without an appointment through my office. Provide us with clear evidence that he has been involved in a crime or we will leave. What will it be?" Agent Gregson sighed and showed his frustration. "Mr. Walters, you're free to go. Thank you for coming." "Thank you. Can I ask one more thing before I leave?" "Sure," Gregson said. "My home was left a mess yesterday because of your search. There is no evidence you could use against me. I would like my computer and personal papers returned as soon as possible." Gregson nodded without saying anything. I felt relieved to have an attorney with me. Frank walked me to my car. "Don't worry, Steve. They are just trying to find something. You have done nothing wrong, and it's not your job to help them. They now know that they can't talk to you when I'm not around because I am your attorney. You can go back to work or do whatever you want." I shook his hand firmly and said, "Thanks, Frank, for everything." It was clear that Christopher had complained to the FBI about me regarding his missing boat and painting, and he wanted answers. I found some humor in the trouble and loss he was feeling after leaving me alone on the boat. I'll give him credit. He is bold. He probably thinks that being aggressive is the best way to defend himself. I'm sure he told the agents some exaggerated stories about what I might say during an interview. I'm glad I didn't tell them anything they didn't already know. I got back to work and had a very productive day thanks to my improved mood. The next day brought an unexpected surprise. "Mr. Walters, this is Ben from the lobby. You have a visitor. Can you come down now or should I ask them to wait?" "I'll be right down, Ben. Thanks." I didn't expect anyone today, but it could just be a sales call. When I reached the lobby, I almost turned around and left, but I didn't want to put Ben in a tough spot. I gathered my courage and approached her. "Hello, Mrs. Belvedere. What brings you here?" "Please, Steve, is there somewhere private we can talk for a minute? It won't take long, I promise." "Sure, there's a meeting room over there. Let me see if it's available." It was. "All right, Mrs. Belvedere, again. Why are you here?" "Don't be so formal with me, Steve. What happened to Lorene?" "Just speak plainly. Some of us have to work, Mrs. Belvedere. Please say what you came to say or leave." "I'm sorry you feel that way. Honestly, I don't blame you. You have no idea how good it is to finally see you well. I know you might not believe this, but it's true. As for why I'm here, I'll get straight to the point. Kirsty can't talk to you or your kids right now because of the restraining order, and we didn't think you'd want to see Christopher after that day on the sailboat. We tried to get information about what happened to you, the boat, and our painting from the FBI, but they said you got a lawyer. They have enough to get a search warrant, but are hesitant to charge you with anything serious without more evidence. They can't talk to you without your lawyer, but I can. Look, Steve, I'm being honest, and I'll show you I mean it right here if you need proof. Here's my phone. I've turned it off. It's just you and me. Nobody wants to see you in trouble over that day. We just need to find our boat and painting. Can you tell me something, Steve? How did you get home after we left you that day?" I looked into her eyes. It felt strange to see her fully dressed after she had been carefree for days. I wanted to express my frustration about everything, but I chose to stay quiet. Instead, I opened the door, turned away, and left the room. I asked Ben to see the woman out. I wasn't interested in their questions. It felt good to take control. 2 more weeks passed without any problems. Jenna and I were creating a comfortable home for Amelia and Eric. She always seemed to know when I needed something, appearing beside me with it instantly. Did she have some special insight? I sometimes wondered. But it was nice that we were so in tune. It was August, and the children were back in school. Jenna had managed to gather all the necessary supplies for them before the first day. She was certainly my right-hand helper. Jenna went above and beyond to support me and the kids during these tough times, asking for nothing in return. I felt a bit guilty, like I was taking advantage of her kindness. I had a feeling I knew what she wanted from me. Should I take a chance and explore that? I decided to reach out to her that morning from my office. "Hi, Jenna. It's me. I was wondering if you'd like to have dinner with me tonight at a new place I've been wanting to try, the Golden Griddle." "That sounds great, Steve. What time should the kids and I be ready?" "Kids? Well, I was thinking we could go out just the 2 of us. Would you be okay with that? We'll need to find someone to watch them." "You mean like a real date? Just us?" She sounded excited. "Yes," I laughed. "That's what I was hoping for if you know someone who can look after the kids." "Absolutely. I have lots of younger siblings, so finding a sitter for tonight won't be a problem. What time?" "I'll pick you up right after work and we can go straight to the restaurant." "The Golden Griddle? That's right between your work and home, right?" "Yes, that's the one. Why not meet there instead? It saves you a trip home and gives us more time together." "I like that idea. I'll leave work right after 5. How about we meet there around 5:20? Is that possible?" "It's 5:20. I can't wait any longer. I need to get ready. Don't worry about Amelia and Eric. I promise they will be safe." "I trust you completely, Jenna. I'll see you there." Jenna wasn't the only one feeling anxious. I was a little nervous about taking this next step, too. I was showing her that there might be more to our relationship than what it has been. After work, I drove to the restaurant and parked. Luckily, I had made a reservation. The lot was almost full. I locked my car and buttoned my jacket. I wanted this to go well. As I walked toward the restaurant, I saw Jenna running toward me, calling my name loudly. I had never seen her so excited since we met. Before I could feel embarrassed about her enthusiasm, she reached me and hugged me tightly. Suddenly, a man appeared out of nowhere, brandishing a large knife. Before I could think, he thrust the knife toward Jenna. She gasped and then went quiet. In that moment, I realized he had attacked her. I knew I had to protect her. I quickly wrapped my arm around his neck from behind and pulled with all my strength. I grabbed my wrist with my other hand to tighten my grip. My only thought was to stop him. It seemed to work. Within seconds, his body went limp. I slowly brought him down to the ground, keeping my hold firm until I was sure he was no longer a threat. I didn't know who he was or why he wanted to hurt Jenna. I leaned over her as she knelt in shock and yelled for someone to call for help right away. The knife was stuck deep. I didn't know how to remove it safely. Medical help was not my area of expertise. I was surprised at how quickly I heard sirens. Both the police and an ambulance arrived at the same time. I told the police what had happened, that the unconscious man had stabbed Jenna, and I had no idea who he was or why he did it. The paramedics carefully placed Jenna on a stretcher, leaving the knife in place for the doctors to handle at the hospital. The police wanted to ask me questions. I told them they could arrest me later for leaving, but that this girl was like family to me. I needed to go with her to the hospital to make sure she got the best care. They understood the situation and said they would follow up with me there. Several other people who saw what happened were willing to give their statements too. The ambulance took us to Tampa General Hospital, which was the closest one. I held Jenna's hand and reassured her that everything would be okay. With my other hand, I called Gloria Sanchez, Jenna's mother. She was very upset and said she would rush over. It seemed like she was driving as fast as she could because she was waiting for us at the ambulance entrance. She kissed Jenna gently and promised that everything would be done to help her. Thanks to her background, she quickly went inside with Jenna and the medical team who had been alerted while we were on our way. I stayed behind to answer the ER nurse's questions about medical and insurance details. In under 15 minutes, 2 police officers found me in the lobby to ask about what happened in the parking lot. I did my best to answer all their questions. When they asked if I had any idea why someone would attack us, I thought of one name, Christopher Belvedere. They said they would look into it and let me know if they found anything. About 45 minutes later, Gloria found me in the lobby to give me an update. They had put a small tube in to let air escape and had stitched Jenna's wound. "She's stable now," Gloria said. "They gave her some medicine to help with her anxiety and shock. The knife came out fairly easily. It had gone into her back and affected some muscles, causing a small wound in one lung. They are going to admit her for the night to keep an eye on her. She'll have a special device on her legs to help with blood flow and prevent clots. They're also watching her temperature and looking for any signs of infection. It's likely that the person who hurt her didn't clean his knife." "Thank you, Gloria, for letting me know. When can I see her?" "They should have her in a private room within the hour. You know how things go in a hospital. It takes time." "Is she alert? Has she said anything about what happened?" "Steve, do you want to know what her first words were when she woke up?" "Yes, of course. Her only concern was for you. She wanted to make sure you were safe and not hurt. She told me that going out with you tonight was the happiest moment of her life. She got to the restaurant well before you and was looking out for you. She said she noticed a strange man coming up behind you with something sharp hidden by his leg. He was coming right for you and was about to strike without you knowing. Her instincts took over and she ran towards you, calling your name. She moved in front of you to shield you from the threat. She wanted to keep you safe no matter what it took." I was stunned. "But why? Why would she do that, Gloria? Steve, are you really that clueless? Don't you see? I've known for years. That girl cares for you deeply. That's why I stopped trying to set her up with other people. No one ever measured up to you in her eyes. Even if she couldn't have you, she wanted to be close to you. Being away from you would break her heart. I don't know what's happening between you and Kirsty. I've asked, but she won't share anything. Yet lately, she has seemed happier than ever. She's been glowing like someone on cloud 9. Tears filled my eyes as I understood how genuine Jenna's love was. There is no greater love than to protect one's friends. I quietly hoped to be worthy of such love someday. The walls I had built to see her as just a little sister disappeared. My feelings for her poured out from my heart. Gloria noticed the change in my eyes and smiled, gently patting my hand. She stayed with me until we heard that Jenna had been moved to her room. We hurried to her side. When Jenna saw me, we both cried happy tears, she for my safety and I for my newfound feelings. I held her hand tightly, not wanting to let go. When visiting hours were up, I didn't want to leave her alone. "I can't leave her here by herself, Gloria, but I need to care for Amelia and Eric, too." "Leave? That's silly, Steve. The only way you could go would be to take her arm with you. My daughter Francesca is with them and will stay overnight. Over the years, you've shown such kindness by inviting me and my kids to every cookout. It's the only time they enjoyed steaks. Don't worry about Amelia and Eric. I have 5 other children who think the world of you and would do anything to return the kindness you've given them. Between me and my children, your kids will be well cared for until you and Jenna come home safely. Even after Jenna returns home, we'll continue to help until she can take care of everything again. I'm leaving now, but I'll check on your children and Francesca to see if they need anything. Just stay here as long as you want and look after my daughter. I feel something special is happening and I don't want to interrupt it. Gloria gave Jenna a gentle kiss on the forehead and me a quick peck on the cheek before leaving. Just before falling asleep, holding my hand tightly, Jenna joked, "You still owe me that date. I'm counting on it." I wanted to hug her, but I knew it would be hard for her, so I just squeezed her hand to confirm. Gloria genuinely meant what she said. Her family, including her son, worked together to make sure I had everything I needed, along with the kids. Everyone was eager to help us and support their older sister. Jenna was carefully kept from any extra responsibilities until the trial date arrived. She made it clear that she would be by my side during the trial to support me, and no one, not even me, could change her mind. It would take weeks for her to heal, but all she needed was time. Since I had been asked to be a witness in the case against the trio, my time away from work for the trial wouldn't count against me as unexcused absence. It was considered similar to jury duty and would be acceptable as long as I provided a note from the courthouse. I was glad the children were in school. Jenna stayed close to me whenever she could. Her presence was very reassuring and she stuck by my side. I didn't need my attorney Frank Stratton with me because I was just a witness, not involved as a plaintiff or a defendant. The district attorney advised me to arrive right before it was my turn to speak to avoid any unwanted encounters in the hallway. I was taken to a side room, and one of his assistants showed me to my seat right behind the prosecutor's table. Without looking, I could sense 3 pairs of eyes on me as I walked to my seat next to Jenna. This would be the first time Kirsty would see me since that day. I was anxious to find out if there was still a part of the woman I had loved and married. I was probably just as eager for this to be over as they were. The people in the courtroom were instructed to stand for the legal proceedings that lead to a trial. The DA and the defense attorney presented their opening statements, each saying the opposite of the other. Then it was time for their main witness to step forward. I was sworn in and ready to answer questions. "Walters, can I call you Steve?" "Yes, I'd like that," I replied to the district attorney's request. The DA spent the next 2.5 hours asking me questions about everything that happened during the sailing trip. He covered a lot of ground. We went over the tough situations I had faced, including being forced into difficult positions and handled roughly. I even showed the jurors the marks on my wrist. Some details were left out, but the DA was focused on proving the charges. I spoke truthfully throughout. After a break for lunch, it was time for the defense to question me. The lawyer was a large man with thin glasses. "Steve, you've told quite a story today. You should consider writing fiction because much of what you say seems made up, doesn't it, Steve?" I decided to stay calm, even during his sharp questioning. "No, sir. You expect us to believe all the nonsense you've shared about these 3 people on trial?" "Yes, sir." "Steve, isn't this just a way to distract us from the truth about you stealing a $10 million sailboat and a $40 million painting from the Belvedere's?" "No, sir." "Is it true you are the main suspect in an ongoing FBI investigation?" "Yes, sir." "And is that investigation about the missing sailboat and painting?" "Yes, sir." "So you admit to being involved with those items?" "No, sir." He looked frustrated that he couldn't shake me. "Steve, do you think Christopher Belvedere is a handsome man?" "I don't think of men that way, sir." "Just answer yes or no. Do you find Christopher Belvedere handsome?" "Not to me, sir." "Do you think he is fit and strong?" "Yes, sir." "Has your wife, Kirsty Walters, called him attractive in front of you?" "Yes, sir." "Aha. So wouldn't you say you feel jealous of him because of his looks that attract your wife and other women?" "No, sir." "No? Why not, Steve? Why wouldn't an ordinary man like you feel jealous of someone like Christopher? Even I feel a bit jealous." "I'd rather not say, sir. It's personal." "Personal? You can't hide behind privacy here, Steve. Why would you prefer not to share?" "Because it's embarrassing." "Embarrassing? I don't care about that. Just answer the question. Why would an everyday person like you feel upset about someone like Christopher Belvedere?" The judge turned to me and said, "Answer the question, please." "Yes, sir." I will. I did not want to share this in front of everyone to avoid embarrassment, but since I have to, there's a good reason I don't feel upset about him. In fact, I feel pity for him. He cannot have children anymore. I have 2 kids who mean everything to me. I wouldn't change places with him for anything. No, sir. I'm not upset about Christopher Belvedere. The jurors gasped and laughed a little. The judge hit his gavel to calm everyone down. I figured he was trying to make me look jealous of Christopher to explain why I might take the boat and painting. He didn't succeed. The district attorney gave me a wide smile. The defense lawyer continued asking questions. Would you say Laureen Belvedere is a pretty woman? Yes, sir. Weren't you upset when she turned down your attempts to get close to her because she was loyal to her husband? I can't answer that question. Oh, here we go again. Let me guess. You can't answer because it makes you uncomfortable. No, sir. Then please tell the court why you can't answer. This seems to be a habit of yours, not answering questions because you find them awkward. I can't answer that question because it's a tricky question. In what way, Steve? Your question suggests that I tried to charm Mrs. Belvedere. That never happened. That's hard to believe. Steve, you're about to learn about the truth. Others in this courtroom will challenge what you said. But first, at the risk of making you uncomfortable, I hope to get at least one honest answer from you today. Objection, Your Honor, the district attorney said quickly. Objection upheld. The defense should avoid putting down the witness. Yes, Your Honor. Now, Steve, when you stayed behind while your wife and the Belvederes visited the island of Montserrat on July 6th, please tell the court what happened afterward. How did you manage the boat and painting and get back home to the U.S.? I had been ready for this question. Everyone wanted to hear my answer. Christopher, Laureen, and Kirsty leaned in, eager not to miss a word. Your Honor, this isn't a straightforward yes or no question. I need to explain fully. May I have the court's permission to speak without interruption? It might take a few minutes. The defense lawyer looked at Christopher, who nodded eagerly. Then he nodded to the judge. Very well. Go ahead, son. Speak your mind, but please don't go on too long. You will not be interrupted until you finish. Is everyone in agreement? The defense lawyer nodded again. I knew that everything I was about to say was not true, but I was the only witness, and I needed to see justice served. Thank you, Your Honor. That day on the sailboat, as I mentioned before, Christopher, Kirsty, and Laureen had tied my left wrist to a secure bar. They left me alone as they went to get something illegal to weaken my will. About 10 minutes after they left, I heard footsteps coming towards me. I called out, hoping it was them returning, but soon found out it was not. 3 men came into the cabin with me, and 2 of them were holding a device. I guessed it was something to block communications. All 3 wore black ski masks and dark clothing. I never saw their faces or any marks that would help me identify them later. They spoke a language I didn't understand and did not say a word in English. I continued. After quickly checking the boat to see I was alone, they relaxed and laughed at my situation. It must have been unusual for them to find me in such a state. At that moment, I felt a fear I had never known before. I thought my life was over, and I felt anger towards those who had left me in this situation. The men then began to carry out their tasks. I heard one on deck raising the anchor while another worked with a laptop, possibly tampering with the boat's systems. Before long, the boat was moving quickly to an unknown place. Even though I was still tied up, I stayed silent, not wanting to draw attention to myself. After taking a deep breath, I continued. Once we were moving, I saw them writing something down, likely taking stock of the boat's features. I knew it was a valuable vessel. About half an hour later, 2 of them approached me and began asking questions I could not understand. I responded with one word, American. One of them took out a satellite phone and made a call. He spoke with someone for nearly 5 minutes before pointing the phone at me. The person on the phone spoke broken English, but I understood him. He asked for my name and where I was from. I answered. After that, he engaged the other 2 men in a heated discussion. Then he asked why I was tied up and left alone on the boat. I explained that my wife was unfaithful with the captain of the boat, and they were trying to embarrass me while a video of their actions played on the TV. They had come to the island for drugs to use against me. He paused and asked if I knew where the valuables were on the boat. He suggested that if I told them the truth, they would let me live. If I didn't, I would be in serious trouble. The courtroom was silent as I continued. Can you imagine how vulnerable I felt? Scared and stripped of my dignity, facing a threat to my life while my wife and the captain betrayed me? In that moment, I thought about giving up as a way to escape my pain. When I said this, Kirsty started crying. She realized the terrible situation her actions had put me in, which could have caused my death. I was surprised to see any sign of regret from her. To try to save my life, I told the man on the phone where to find a box in the engine room. It held my personal items and cash left on the boat. He shouted orders to others in their language before they left to check my honesty. I believe anyone would have done the same in my position. They returned with the box, opened it, and began to count the contents. After talking to their boss on the phone, he thanked me for making things easier for them. He explained that they didn't want a dead American, as it would bring too much attention. They were okay with being pirates, but murder would cause more trouble than they wanted. He said he would grant me 3 favors for helping them without resistance. They thought they hit the jackpot. The cash and coins meant little to them compared to the boat's worth. They kept looking at a painting and even took a picture of it. But I didn't say anything. The jurors listened closely as I shared my story. The man on the phone asked how much cash was mine. I told him I had $2,000 in that box. They counted out the money and gave me my passport. He explained we would be near the island of Antigua in 30 minutes. He ordered them to let me get some clothes and pack my $2,000 and passport in a waterproof bag before letting me go near the island. As we got closer to Antigua, one of the masked men pointed something at my head while the man on the phone warned that they knew my address. He threatened my family if I said anything about them. I promised I would keep quiet. I just wanted to go home. Then he surprised me with one last kind act. He told me that his wife had recently left him for another man, so he understood my pain. He promised to tell the authorities in Montserrat about the illegal activity my wife and the captain were involved in, as a way to get back at them. They pushed me overboard and I swam as hard as I could to the nearest pier. Worried about my family, I never spoke about my difficult experience until now. I bought a plane ticket home and got some gifts for my children while I waited for my flight. I flew home and tried to start my life again. That's the story. The room was silent as the jurors imagined being in my situation. It was clear that I had finished speaking. The defense attorney clapped slowly, mocking me. "Steve, I'll give you credit for your imagination. Your story is almost as good as the first part of your tale, but not quite. You see, there are no other witnesses here to challenge what you just said, so you think the jury will accept your story without question. Not so with the first part of your tale. Honest witnesses are about to show the truth and reveal who you really are. I'm done with my questions. You may step down, but stay close. When your lies are revealed, you could face serious charges." I kept a calm face and returned to my seat. Jenna held my hand tightly to comfort me. The defense attorney announced, "The defense would like to call its first witness. Please welcome Christopher Belvedere to the stand." After being sworn in, Christopher told the jurors that everything I said today was untrue. He explained how he and Lorene had become friends with my wife and me and had invited us on that trip. He emphasized that he had been a gentleman the entire time. He mentioned that he had often teased me for looking too much at his wife's modest clothing. He talked about my strong interest in their painting and its worth. He said that Kirsty often apologized to them for my behavior, as they were trying to tolerate me for her sake. He clearly stated that he was not sterile and suggested that I was speaking poorly of him out of jealousy. He swore under oath that no one ever tried to restrain me. In fact, they tried to keep their distance from me to avoid problems on the boat. He said it was silly to think he would be interested in seeing me without clothes. The jury chuckled at that remark. After he left the stand, Lorene repeated his testimony almost exactly. She said that no one ever talked about drugs and that I acted strangely, making her feel unsafe when I was near her. She said they didn't want to leave me behind when they went to Montserrat, but I pretended to be sick. She and her husband believed that everything I said was a lie, and then she stepped down from the situation. The jury seemed to find the couple's story convincing and sympathetic. I suspected they had practiced their delivery to sway the jury in their favor. I wasn't surprised by their performance. What I really wondered about was Kirsty. Would she support me, or would she turn against me? Her testimony would decide if the court records would be kept private. When she was called to testify, it meant she chose not to keep things secret. That was a hard moment for me. She looked straight at me and agreed with their claims, saying how hard I had been to deal with. She mentioned how embarrassed she felt about my focus on Laureen and that painting. She said she had been unhappy with me and wanted to leave, but stayed for the kids. She showed me that she was aligned with Christopher Belvedere. After her performance on the stand, the defense wrapped up. The three of them now had us all believing my side of the story was just a bunch of lies. The judge gave us a break for lunch. Kirsty and the Belvederes smiled at me while Jenna and I went out to eat. They seemed pleased with what they thought they had achieved against me. I could sense that Jenna wanted to ask about my run-in with some trouble, but remembered I had asked her not to ask anything until the trials were finished. She remained supportive despite the strong testimony she had just heard. It was clear that the defense figured they had an easy win. They believed the verdict would go in their favor if it was decided right then. When the session started again, the DA asked the judge to let the prosecution respond to the three testimonies, and the judge agreed. He introduced a video as evidence. The defense objected, saying it shouldn't have been shown without prior notice. The judge questioned what kind of video it was. The DA explained that it was footage from the sailing trip and was being presented to counter specific statements made by the three witnesses. The defense attorney looked at Christopher, who guessed it was a video taken from my phone, telling the attorney not to worry. This moment marked the turning point for their case. The short 90-minute video showcased the truth of everything I had testified about the three of them. There was one particular part that revealed motivations that I was sure Kirsty had never heard before. A short chat during the trip between Christopher and Laureen revealed a lot. "Do you think he'll change his mind?" Laureen asked her husband. "One way or another, I promise you he'll come around. Once we wear him down with just the right approach, he will gladly give you the child you want. He'll be like a tool for you, just like Kirsty is for me. But remember, that's just a side benefit. Our main goal in making Steve toe the line is to use his role as head of product development at Stargen Pharmaceutical so he can share private information to help me trade stocks. With the right info, we could increase our $400 million to $800 million in about a year." I watched Kirsty's face as she listened to her friend's plan to use me to boost their profits. She realized she was just a minor player to Christopher. They had tried to use her to get to me, and I saw embarrassment wash over her. She had worked hard to hand me over to them for no good reason. After the video ended, the defense attorney asked the district attorney how he had gotten the video, hoping to keep it out of the case. The DA revealed a letter from an anonymous source, stating that such tips are common for both sides. It took the jury less than 30 minutes to find all three guilty on every charge. The judge decided they would stay in custody until sentencing. The defense attorney sought to appeal and asked for bail, which was set at $10 million. He also wanted the court records sealed to protect his clients, but the judge informed them that the records would remain public. Later, the defense attorney asked if I could speak to Christopher briefly in a side room, stating that a bailiff would be there with us. Christopher remembered my warning about being alone with him. The bailiff was there to ensure his safety. I hesitated but agreed, and told Jenna to wait in the car. Christopher seemed almost friendly as he prepared to talk. "Congratulations on that video. I don't know how you managed it, but good job. I'm sure you didn't ask me here to compliment me, Christopher. What do you want?" "Two things, Steve. First, where's my boat and painting? How would I know? I couldn't lead you to them if I tried." "I'll let that go for now. I heard you want to sue me with a civil case. What will it take for us to settle this quietly just between us?" I smiled and replied, "Oh, I might just accept $100 million. Write that check and we can finish this. 25% of my net worth? You've really changed your mind from not wanting anything. I was thinking more like 10 million. For ruining my family's happiness? While my marriage might have had troubles because of you, it was you who made it worse. 10 million is a small amount for you, Christopher. Using threats and drugs shows you can't handle things in a calm way. If you write the check today, I might consider 75 million. How about this? 40 million, no taxes taken out. I'll cover what the tax office would take, so you'll get a full 40 million, which is 10% of my net worth. I pretended to think for a moment. Deal, but not a penny less. He said his accountant would handle the transfer today after figuring out the taxes and tried to shake my hand. I didn't take it. Then he smiled and said the insurance company would send me that $40 million for the painting we lost, so it wouldn't cost him much. I would have paid you $80 million. Maybe, but I would have taken $4 million, which is $1 million more than what you would have given Kirsty. Now I'll take 10 times that amount. You just gave me 40 million reasons to steer clear of you, especially Kirsty. Making her see our child from prison will be hard, and for this deal, if the money isn't in my account before the bank closes today, it's off. I turned and left the room. As the bank was about to close, I checked my account. I saw a deposit of $63,492,064. 00. The taxes were figured out to be $23,492,063. 68. Once the tax office takes its share, I should have a full $40 million. I was relieved not to have to go through another trial. I would still pay Frank Stratton a nice fee even though I wouldn't need his services anymore. It looked like the Belvederes believed there was no point in appealing their decision. A new trial might end badly for them and bring even more negative attention. Kirsty lost her job at the hospital because of her drug case and her criminal record. Lorene also couldn't volunteer there anymore for the same reasons. Now that they had given up their appeal, their sentencing hearing was set for 2 weeks. The district attorney added a charge of lying in court, and they all said they were guilty. Since I was the only victim, I was the only one allowed to speak in court about whether they should be treated kindly or harshly. I asked for the longest sentences possible for each one. They could have gotten over 80 years each for what they did together. The judge gave all 3 of them 40 years in prison. If they behaved well, they could cut their sentences in half. That would still mean at least 20 years for each of us. Kirsty asked me to let her see the kids one more time before she went to prison. I'll agree under 3 conditions, I replied. What are they? First, you need to take responsibility for what happened. No blaming me to the kids. I promise, Steve. I know you'd have years to turn them against me otherwise. Second, I want you to give me full custody. You'll be gone for their childhood, so it makes sense. With custody settled, we can move forward with our divorce easily. I'll do it if you promise to let them visit me whenever they want. I don't want you to force them, just if they ask. Promise me that and I'll sign the custody papers. But I won't give up my role as their mother. If you remarry, I know they might call someone else mom, and I can accept that, as long as they know they have a mother who loves them. Okay. Now we just have to figure out the division of our shared belongings. I'll buy out your half of the house. You won't need it. You can keep all the furniture. I'll arrange a moving truck to take it to your parents' home in North Carolina for storage, along with your car. We will also split our financial accounts in half, as of the date you were served. That seems fair to me. What about the money you made from the Belvederes? Still thinking of money, huh, Kirsty? My lawyer says that anything I earned after you were served isn't part of our shared assets. Unless you want to try to challenge me, that's not negotiable. And if you do challenge me, you'll likely lose and won't get to see the kids again. Don't take it the wrong way, Steve. I just thought I'd ask. I know I can't make demands. You mentioned 3 conditions? Yes. If you give me custody of the kids, agree to the way we divide our belongings, and don't disagree with the divorce, it can be finalized in about 20 days. We both know our marriage is over, and it's not smart to fight me on this. You know, when I'm alone in my cell, I sometimes still feel your presence. Even though we are heading for divorce, the memories of what we had or what I let slip away will always stay with me. I know you don't believe it, but I still love you and always will. I got caught up in the thrill and the idea of a life full of wealth. Now I must deal with the results of my choices. I'm truly sorry for how I betrayed you in our marriage, Steve. That's a lot to think about, Kirsty. I've also heard that some people find one type of tea especially hard to drink, reality. I have the kids waiting in the next room. If you could sign the papers now and let this lady notarize them, I'll bring the children in right after that. She quickly signed her name on the documents to hurry things along. Tears of both happiness and sadness filled her eyes as they ran into her arms. I listened as she spoke to them. Amelia and Eric, I want you to know that you are my favorite people in the whole world. I love you so much. But Mommy made some mistakes that hurt Daddy. I told him I was sorry for what I did. I wish I could go back and change things, but that's not possible. It's not Daddy's fault that I will be away for a long time until you both grow up. Promise me you'll be the wonderful kids I know you can be and listen to Jenna and Daddy while I'm gone, okay? Once the door closed behind us, I could hear her crying over her troubles. I wish I could say I was happy about her sadness, but that wasn't true. I felt sad for our children losing the mother who brought them into the world for so long. I made plans for Amelia and Eric to see a child therapist regularly over the next 6 months to help them cope with their mother's absence. In time, it turned out to be one of the best decisions I ever made. I made sure they knew that I would take them to visit their mother in prison if they wanted to see her. They gave me small smiles but never asked about it, and I never brought it up. As promised, I told Jenna everything about my past, the whole truth. She now knows I sank the Belvedere's boat with their precious painting on it. She understands why I did what I did when escaping their trap and believes they deserved their punishments. It was still hard for her to accept that Kirsty would betray me, but she realized that if things had gone differently, we might not have a chance for a new life together. Jenna chose all new furniture for our home. She was so excited, like a kid in a candy store. Her joy was contagious. She told me she felt much better 5 weeks after the incident. At her 6-week checkup, the doctor said she was fit to return to normal activities. Until then, her mother or another family member had always been there to help with everything. My divorce papers came through, and I was free from that legal bond. I will always have a special place in my heart for the mother of my children, but only in that way. After everything that happened, I didn't have any romantic feelings left for Kirsty. That was in the past. I kept my promise and asked Jenna out for a second date. This time, it went much better than the first. I was really starting to care for her. The love I had for her like family changed into something beautiful. When I got home from our date, I gave her a wonderful kiss that sparked something special between us. We started kissing on the couch, lost in the moment. Just before things went further, I paused to share my feelings. "I'm not perfect, Jenna. Kirsty hurt me. Are you sure you want to be with me?" Her eyes were bright with emotion as she said, "I might want other things, Steve, but what I really need is you. You helped me heal from my injury. Now I want to help you heal from your heartbreak. Since the day we met, I've wanted to be with you. I want you more than anything else. Please be mine, Steve, not just for tonight, but forever." I took her to my room, and I learned something new about her. "You haven't been with anyone?" I wouldn't share myself with anyone I dated before. I was saving myself for you or someone just like you. You're exactly who I was waiting for. And we connected in a loving way. I took my time with her, gentle and caring. That first night she was quite nervous, but after that she opened up more and more with me. In the following weeks, she wanted to explore new things with me to find out what she liked most. The kids giggled when they saw us kiss for the first time. They thought it was funny, but it also made them feel secure. They understood where their mother was and why, but Jenna had been a caring part of their lives for a long time. This made their emotions steady. They knew I would always be there for them too. It was the best situation we could have. We never had trouble finding a babysitter. Gloria or one of Jenna's siblings would often help out. That summer I helped Jenna complete her scuba diving lessons so we could dive together. Life felt perfect for us. I stayed at my job not because we needed the money, but because I loved what I did. It gave me stability. After a month of happiness, I realized I couldn't imagine my life without her. At her birthday party with all our friends and family there, I got down on one knee and asked her to marry me. Jenna shouted, "I thought you would never ask." Everyone laughed and cheered, especially Amelia and Eric, who were the most excited. Jenna and I decided to build a new house together, picking every detail, color, and finish. It was not as fancy as the Belvedere mansion, but it had 6 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom. It had many nice features. Jenna and the kids were thrilled. We planned our wedding to match the move-in date of our new home. Before the wedding, Jenna asked me to sign a prenup, which said I would keep most of our shared assets if things didn't work out, but she promised that would never happen. I believed her. She wanted me to know she was with me for love, not money. After we got married, we spent 3 wonderful weeks on our honeymoon in Hawaii. When we got back, everything was set for us to move in. Jenna was very happy as she directed where everything should go in our new home. I enjoyed coming home for lunch often, where Jenna would greet me warmly. We started taking fancy family vacations, including scuba diving. My new wife loved playing the song Never Enough from The Greatest Showman. I couldn't help but love her more every day. We bought a boat, not a fancy yacht, but a power boat for family outings, fishing, and scuba diving. Jenna and I shared many joyful moments together. She kept running our home but didn't get paid. Instead, we had 2 more children, and she received love and support from me. Our 2 boys were cherished by their older siblings, who knew that Jenna loved them just as much as her biological children. Then I remembered my mother saying, "Everything happens for a reason." Suddenly, everything felt clear. Hey everyone! Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of the exciting stories we have coming up. What do you think about the characters in this story? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.